All right, you guys, it is 5:15. We are going to call our regular meeting to order. I am going to go ahead and ask everybody to stand and join me in the pledge.
Everybody.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I feel like you're on mute. I'm going to go ahead and welcome our guests, both present and online. And now I'm going to ask that everybody in attendance join me in reciting both our mission and then moving directly into our vision. The mission of the Nampa School District is to ensure high levels of achievement for every student. Continued, every student is fully engaged in extraordinary learning experiences, preparing for successful transition to the next stage of life. All right, we are now on to item 2, and I will entertain a motion to approve our agenda.
So moved.
And second, motion has been made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
I will now entertain a motion to move us into executive session.
Madam Chair, I move that we go to executive session per Idaho Code 74206, 1B, D, and J. J, to consider labor contract matters authorized under Section 74201, 206, 1A and B of Idaho Code. B, to consider the evaluation, dismissal, or disciplining of, or to hear complaints or charges brought against a public officer, employee, staff member, or individual agent, or public school student. D, to consider records that are exempt from disclosure as provided in Chapter 1, Title 74 of Idaho Code.
Okay, motion has been made and seconded. We do have Trustee Benz in attendance virtually via phone. We will now take a roll call vote. Clerk Lamont? Aye.
Trustee Kirkman?
Aye.
Trustee Sue?
Aye.
Trustee Benz?
Motion has been made and passes. We are now entering into executive session to reconvene at 6 p.m. and go directly into the budget hearing. It is 6 p.m. We are back in session. Because you guys weren't here at the beginning, obviously there was no need to. We weren't in public session yet. I am going to re-welcome you all. We are really excited to have you, and we know you are probably here because you are passionate about something we will be speaking about tonight. So there are a few rules that I'm going to set because it's really important that we hear everything that's set up here. So tonight, when somebody comes up to talk, if they do, maybe none of you want to talk, but I would be shocked if that's the case. But when you guys come up, if you agree with something that's said, I just want you to raise your hand. We can see it. It's super impactful. What I can't have you do is scream out. Okay? I can't have you clap. I can't have you hoop and holler. Just raise those hands. We're going to give everybody those 3 minutes. All right? If you are planning on speaking tonight, there is a public comment sheet that you should have signed on your way in. If you have not, take that time now to go ahead and sign that sheet. We will take it when we call for public comment, so you have until that time. All right. We're glad that you're here. We're going to move into our budget hearing portion. We will then hit our spotlight. We will have a couple of updates, and then we will go into public comment at that time. So again, welcome, and we will now go ahead and move into our budget hearing. Mr. Yarborough?
Chair Taylor, thank you. Randy Dewey has just got here. He's on site. He's going to be coming in, so I'm going to give you just 1 second to grab him. Tyler, would you grab Randy? Let him know that we're ready for the budget hearing. He was saying he was going to come in when the boardroom clears out, but we've got folks here. So he's on the way in. He was caught in traffic coming from a meeting in Boise. I apologize, but rush hour traffic is fun.
Understood.
You have to open that wound again, huh?
So this is our treasurer, and this, so a couple of things. We don't do back and forth, but we are waiting for our budget hearing. So our treasurer is on the way to do that portion of the public hearing. If you go online, you can actually follow our agenda, and it'll tell you exactly where we are at in the meeting.
We know he's in the building.
We do. Yep. I believe he may have stepped to the restroom just before that in.
Here he is. There we go. Man of the hour. Nope. Not yet. I was going to ask him what to block here, but well. Hey, Tyler, I think he's in his office. I thought I saw like turn.
He did just go into his office. Were you able to grab him? He just went right in there.
Probably grabbing his last pieces. Sorry.
He's got a captive body. It's waiting for him.
Chair Taylor, I will double check when I start presenting on if anyone signed up for public during the.
Sounds good. Thank you. Mr. Dewey, we
I was
are
told
waiting
there was
your
public-
arrival.
Thanks. I was told there was public comment first, so I apologize.
Sorry.
All right. And coming from Boise, hour and 15 minutes. Not
Oh.
fun. All right. So do you have the presentation, sir?
Chair Taylor, again, just for clarification, this is Randy Dewey, our finance director for the Nampa School Districts.
Yep. And just to make sure we're understanding, there also is an amended budget within. I'm not going to talk about it much today, but it's basically the same thing you see in the finance package. So not a big deal. All right. If you want to go to the next first one, and anytime you guys obviously have any questions, please let me know. This is very short, sweet, try to get to the point, but obviously a budget of this size is much more detailed. So I
Mr.
want to
Dewey,
make
for
sure
clarification, are you asking us to ask questions during rather than holding until the end?
if that's how you want to do it,
Great.
you are you were up, it's up to you and how you
Will
want to
run
do it.
as such. Thank you.
Okay, all right. So I just want to make sure we're all on the same page. Right now, we're anticipating a unit count of 604 units. Just put that in perspective. What we had for budget last year was 630. And that was and we ended up with 623 is what we ended up with, but a protected unit at 623. Next year is no longer going to be protected. Had we not been protected this year, it would have been about 607. So we are anticipating still a little bit of a decline in enrollment. So we've taken that into consideration in some of our FTE stuff, and we feel a 604 unit is actually a reasonable amount right here. What that means for us is a $61 million, $61.6 million state apportionment, but basically that's the money that they give us for salaries. The teacher is based about 1.16. And administrative and classified, they get 3% on their base. It's not what our base is. This is what the revenue base is. So as you see there, they have a revenue base of 43,000, that 3% on top of that, and a classified at 38.8, 3% on top of that. So each one of those has a little bit of an increase each side of those. And then the way I had to do it, because to get like for like, I basically assumed last year, instead of 623, I assumed that it was 604. So then I could see exactly what like for like would have been for increases, because obviously you take from what we had budgeted last year at 630 to a budget of 604, nothing will look like an increase, right? But we did decrease everything else to make it in match. So that's basically how it came up with those numbers. The discretionary side, operations, health insurance, we did see a small increase, about 544,000. I'll talk about expenses here in a little bit. Transportation, we just budgeted exactly what we got this year. Remember, that's based on prior year actual. So next year's based on this year, and then the year after is based on that. So it's kind of hard to determine, and it's also based on everybody else's spending across the state as well. So we kind of got lucky that West Ada is coming down to normal and no longer having the big increases in enrollment, which helps us, everybody else across the state, because they're the biggest users of the funding formula. And then basically all our state funding is roughly the same, other than, those are based on unit projections, FTE, and those type of things. So other than that, it just kind of all goes down. But those are all what we get, we spend type of thing. It's not like if we lose money in these areas, we don't longer have money. It's basically we just spend less in PD and that kind of stuff. So that's what we have there.
Okay, wonderful. Trustee Kirkman has a question. Trustee Kirkman?
Yeah, the increase in the health insurance, was there an increase moving from Blue Cross to Regions?
It was actually the exact opposite. So what was happening? So our discretionary is split into two. It has an operations side and it has a health insurance side. So a couple of years ago, when they split it, they basically would ask us, all districts, hey, what was your increase this year? So we could kind of get an idea of how much we needed to give across the state. Well, that was a very loaded question, because we might have had a 2% increase, but in order to do that, we had to readjust our stuff to maybe get it to 2%. So now what they're doing is basically, since that they've allowed us to be on the state's plan, anytime the states change, we get less money. So basically what happened is they actually decreased our funding in state health insurance, but our cost also went down as well. So to answer your question on the cost side, it's all actuarial based. We don't get a choice on it. Last year, or this current year, is 13,750. Next year is supposed to be 13,000. It really has all ebbs and flows. It's a state funded self-insured plan. Supposedly they're going to spend save millions of dollars in Blue Shield. I've heard good things about Blue Shield, so I'm not that worried. In other states, Blue Shield and Blue Cross are the exact same company. So I'm not too worried. I would be more worried if we were going to a totally different type of insurance that wasn't in the valley or in the state, because the state plan has to adhere to everybody in the state.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Trustee Sue? Okay, thank you. We are ready to move to the second
All
slide.
right. All right. Just want to remind you, we did increase the supplemental levy this year to 14.78. But the caveat, remember in House Bill 292 last year, where we get about $4.5 to $5 million from the state for basically property tax relief. We no longer have bonds next year that we have to levy for or anymore until we actually get a bond passed. So any money we get from that House Bill 292 money comes directly against our supplemental levy. So really, I anticipate only levying from this from the patrons only about 9.2 million. Hopefully, everybody said it was supposed to go up this year, but with state projections and that kind of stuff with revenue right now, not sure if it will. So even if it isn't, we're no more than probably 10 million that we'll ask from the patrons, which is still lower than we've ever done in our environment here. Yes.
So just because this is something that has come up in conversations, I think some people may be, school funding is complicated. And they're dedicated buckets for this that you can't use for that, and vice versa. And the supplemental levy is one of those dedicated things, right? So we levied for specific purposes, so we have to use it for those purposes. Could you kind of explain how the different buckets work and what constraints we might have?
Yeah. So one thing about this district was just different than most across the state because of what happened 11 years ago with our financial issues. And when we got our supplemental, we basically promised the patrons that we would do whatever we needed to do to spend in the categories we told them on the ballot. Okay. So we've been doing that forever. So now it's actually law. Starting in this one, I actually have to do some more certification now. Everybody across the state has to do the same thing we've been doing. And it's now very, very strict. Last time it was, this is what we told you, but we really could go out on our own. Now we're pretty much, if we say it's going to be maintenance projects, it's got to be maintenance projects, unless we go back out to the voters and say, hey, we need you to switch it for us. So it's very restrictive going forward.
And that's a key point right there, because this was voted on by the public. This is not money that the district says, hey, we got this money, let's divvy it up this way. No, this was taken to the voters. The voters voted on this. And so a lot of the comments, questions they get about the field turfs, things like that, that's money that was approved by the public to spend. And now we cannot take that $1.5 million and move it over to whatever, because like you just explained.
You're exactly correct. The one big part I really, really want to focus on is that continued salary of $3.3 million. Yes, it's a big number. Very, very important to us because that's a lot of FTE. But if you've noticed over the years, we have not increased that. So we have not increased that with inflation. We've tried to cover any additional costs for our teachers and to keep that one down. I think that's my number one goal, is to not increase that. Now, obviously, we think curriculum, technology, anything we have on there is super duper important. But we are that continued salary thing is a very important thing too. That's actually operations side that we would have to still make quite a bit of cuts and actually go to the extent of what CUNA and Caldwell are doing right now on theirs, just because of losing that supplemental. So did that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
And then the two things I heard is, number one, thank you to our community because we need this money and we've made
Very
great use
much.
of it. So we want to thank you. And then we anticipate saving them even more money on the next round if we should choose to levy again.
Yeah, I mean,
Great.
and reality is, yeah, we have, this is the first year too. The one thing I would say is this year, I think we're like 78 cents per thousand or 78 cents per $1,000 of assessed value or taxable value. I anticipate with this 14.8 getting the additional money from the state that I think will actually be down in under 50 cents or
Love to
even
hear
down
that.
to 40. When I started to put that in perspective, at some points we were up above $5 every 1,000. So you just see about now the growth and obviously everybody's valuation,
Incredible.
but there's also more houses as well. There's also more commercial. And so that's just being spread across everybody. So I'd be hard pressed to see if anybody's lower than us on any tax bill in our valley right now, because we are super low right now.
50 cents per thousand, that's
It's incredible.
It's a great ROI.
It's actually, yeah, it's actually incredible.
Yeah, so it's great. And we get the benefit of having a big tax base as well. So I will admit that, whereas small districts, it's all born on the residential, where we have a great commercial base as well. So it is a lot of money, but reality in comparison to our budget, it's not near as much as what some of these others that are going through the problems that I have with that.
Okay. Trustees, any other questions on the levy? Okay, thank you, Mr. Dewey.
And the next one. All right. So remember, there's general fund and then there's a whole bunch of other funds. These are even more restricted than the general fund. General fund, we have abilities to be able to do stuff with. These are basically very restrictive state revenues. These are also all of our federal revenues. So like in the past, it used to be our ESSER and those type of things. Now this is like our Title I, Title IIs, and those type of revenues. The state revenues, like I said in the previous one, those all go up and down based on the number of teachers we have, depending on what it is, or the number of our ADA, or all sorts of little things. So they'll kind of go up and down, like our technology funding and that, based on the number of kids we have and that. So those kind of go into the hard one right now. And we've talked about this before, is the maintenance lottery. We used to get about $1.3 to $1.2 million. They did this wonderful House Bill 521, did everything. And then they basically told us, yeah, it's not for operational use, it's for construction, which basically took a $1.3 million from our coffers that we weren't expecting. We have gotten some new information that basically says how we were going to do the money, which is basically put it in the bank and get revenue through interest, would be okay and unrestricted for operational work use. The problem is when you try to sell $1 billion in bond in this market, you can't. So the state's got to actually put these bonds out in basically what they're called tranches. And those tranches are going to be divvied up to the first come, first serve. The luxury we have as district, because we've done all the work on our facilities plan and we put all the money in, we can actually get our information in as soon as they open up the gates, and we can be one of the first ones in. The bad thing for other districts is West Ada is in the same boat we are, and they get 150 million. So when you look about how much we get, 46 or 45 or 46 million versus our two districts alone could take up the first tranche. And I don't think the state's going to allow us to do that. So we might get it by January, but that's pieces and parts. We might get little bits here and there. But it's hard to make interest when you don't have it in a bank yet. So what we have to do is where we got to basically cover that first year of loss, which we talked about, the supplemental money that we're getting from this year, to make that happen. And then after that, we should be okay going forward. But the other part is if you dip into it, that's less revenue in the future that we get to use. So it's kind of a game that we get to play for 10 years with this money. So like I said, and before in the ESSER funding, the ESSER funding is gone now. This will be the last year. There is a few little minor pieces that our title has, but it's got to be gone by 9/30. And it's specialty like homeless stuff, and it's like 30 grand or so. We're not exactly sure how much until the end of the year. But other than that, all the other ESSER funding will be spent. It was the blessing in disguise. Great to have this $50 million, but it also put us pretty dependent on that for a while. And it saved us from doing all these cuts until the year it went away, and now we had to do it all at once. So that was the bummer, but it still helped us for many years.
And 9/30, September 30 is the end of the fiscal year for the feds.
For the feds, yeah. So the federal year is October 1 to 9/30. So all the grants end up on 9/30 on those things. We'll be definitely done by 6/30. I'll pull the rest of the money basically at the end of this month to get everything in and have all those monies done. And then all of our other title fundings, it's a little lower just because the state poverty levels and that kind of stuff are going down. Our allocations based on a census of the city, not necessarily our free and reduced lunch numbers. We're not seeing a reduction in our kids, but as you can see, our city is growing in non-poverty. So that hurts us on our Title I funding, which is a bummer. It didn't hit us too hard yet, but I anticipate usually we're like 2 or 3 years behind on that.
So question then, so that's not tied to the free and reduced lunch applications?
It's not. So the free and reduced lunch applications actually is how we allocate to the schools. So the other one is based on the census that the state does around. And that's why it's super important for us when the census does come around, like our migrant and those guys go and help as much as possible to get people to fill it out, because when they don't fill it out and it's only the top end that fills it out, it really skews the data for the whole city. And the city also has some other things that affect that as well with that census. So it's
When
really
does that
big
census
deal.
occur?
I think it just happened last year. I think it's every 3 to 4
Every
years.
3 years?
3 years or something like that. But it does, but it's a big deal for us
Yeah.
because as that poverty ranking goes up, you know what I'm saying? It's like
Yeah.
the other way, less poverty, it looks like in our city. Really, there's just more people. The percentage is less, but the number that we're dealing with is not any less, unfortunately. So it does hurt, but we're learning how to deal with it. We've dealt with this for years, and we just kind of move forward and again, that's one of them. You have less, you spend less. So you kind of go down and start doing some of those ideas. The IDEA special education one is the one that really truly bothers me, because that is the one where our special education isn't getting smaller. It's going up every single year, a good percentage or two. And those are also our most expensive students to educate, and bus and everything. And so it's when we keep losing that data, that's a real big problem with us.
So then that decline is reflective of data being, submitted by whoever, not an actual decrease in reimbursement, or what is accounting for that decline?
Yeah, so the way that one works is it's not based on the census, it is based on population. The unfortunate thing when they do those calculations, a student with a speech impediment is the same as a student that has a wheelchair that basically can't do anything, and we have to do toiletry and help them in those times. They don't count anything different. So when we have charters and stuff that say they have in private, for that matter, because this is one that follows the privates, we actually have to provide a lot of money for that. I mean, a good example of that is Nampa Christian. So we get $90,000 next year for our preschool special education. Because of the way those numbers worked, last year we had to give like $6,000 worth of services to Nampa Christian. Well, somehow they have 14 next year that they're counting. So now we have to give $20,000 of our $90,000 over to Nampa Christian for those funds next year. So it's those type of things where it's not the same if everybody is not equal, but the state and the way the calculation works is it's an equal calculation. So it truly hurts us. And we have more and more that hits the general fund every year because of it. We're trying really hard to really bump up our Medicaid program as much as possible. But the risk in there is what we don't want to do is get to a point where we are pushing the envelope. I've already in the past had federal agents in there that thought we were doing that. We came out clean, Scott, but it's not one that I like to have of people thinking that we're trying to cheat that. And they take that super seriously because they treat us similar to a doctor that basically cheats the system. And we don't like that.
Quick,
Go ahead.
go ahead.
It was more of a comment. I wish that more people would tour our special education programs. I think that it's eye-opening because we have children completely dependent on human care. Yeah, that was it.
And it is expensive.
It is.
Just quick clarification. You mentioned Nampa Christian. We're paying Nampa Christian because Nampa School District special educated students are being taught there. Is that where they're
Correct.
at? And so
It's
we're
the
paying.
same type of thing happens with our Title I and
Okay.
Title II programs as well. So it's equitable services is what it is. So if you have students there, the funny thing is Nampa Christian also has kids from all over the districts as well. So West Data pays us as well. We basically become the stewards. So we get money from Valley View, West Data, Marsing, and then we'll send those services over. The difference is with Nampa Christian, technically we can't send it to them. It's not like a regular grant. We have to buy it and give them the product. It's the dumbest rules ever. But the welcome to the federal government, separation of church and state, and except when it comes to
Yeah.
vouchers.
Oh, that's why I wanted the clarification. Thank you.
Yep. And now the food service revenue, as you guys might imagine, when you have 20% less days that you're teaching, there's going to be that. Now we are going to have less costs in food and stuff like that, but we're still working around that to make sure that the loss is negligible and make sure that we don't have to cover too much in the general fund on that. Debt service, again, this is a great thing if you're one of those that don't like debt. In my position, I think debt is a very big thing that we needed to have because it helps us keep things up. But as we know, that's not how we are right now. So you'll no longer be levying for debt. Everything we have in there right now with what the state's bringing in and what's already in the bank will basically pay those off next year or 2 years because we have next year's payments and the year after's payments. So that'll be effectively done.
And then, sorry, just to make sure I am completely connecting all the dots, going back to that state revenue, the maintenance lottery, the replacement, we won't be able to get that all at once. Likely it'll be kind of divvied out. We might not be whole and what we're supposed to be getting for until next year. And we're okay in the interim. It's not going to cause additional pain, not receiving those funds up front, right? And how does that affect the debt service? Are those?
Yeah, so those are two
Okay.
separate. To answer your first question, it hurts because we basically, the money that we would have had for our maintenance money, I
The
mean, for
million,
the
right?
supplemental money, we now have to set aside, which we were hoping to have that for 2 years to help with a couple of overages that we had. We no longer have that. We're going to spend the whole thing in a few overages that we couldn't get rid of. And we're going to have to spend this money on maintenance. So the whole plan was never to lose a whole year of maintenance funding. That's a lot of money to make up. We just got lucky because the state supplemental money is going to come in July for what they owe us. And at that point in time, or what I shouldn't say, what they owe us and what the legislature has approved. But yes, it hurts, but we're not financially strapped because we had that money available.
Okay.
And the debt service no longer has anything associated with it because the only time the state kicked in on that stuff with the 292 money I was telling you about was only if we were levying the patrons.
Okay.
We are no longer levying. The status is it goes bond debt, supplemental levy, plant facilities levy, and then whatever, if you didn't have any of those, you could put it towards your maintenance.
Okay.
But we have supplemental levy, so it goes right towards that.
So 2 clarifications. HB 521 has had a third change, if I'm understanding correctly, and that's still not final. So there could be some more changes. We're not receiving our million lottery funds still, but we will receive a portion is our theory of the 46 million.
Yeah, so we'll start receiving money. We just don't know when.
When or how
So
much?
it takes months to get these
Sure.
bond offerings done. And we're hoping we can get some of the first tranche. And then after that, there's tranches after that. So
And to release those funds, we will be submitting our facilities plan, and that is the request from the state.
that's a requirement for the state in order for us to do that.
Okay.
And then where we get lucky is that we've already done a lot of that. For a lot of the small districts that need it more than us, I mean, straight up, some of those people are worse than we are.
Understood?
They won't get their money any faster because they've got to do a lot more work.
And just for public record, that facilities plan was 5 years in the making?
At minimum, I started that when about my second or third year here.
Got it.
And then we started getting a lot more serious with it with
Yeah.
committees and helping
And the last
and
2 years,
paying
we've
for.
really focused on it. So, I mean,
Yep.
that's just kudos to us being good predictors of what we would need. So again, just great work on a continued administration initiative. Okay.
All right, you want to go to the next one? All right, so I just remind everybody what our expense reduction measures were. We did have 70 FT on ESSER. All of those are gone. So that wasn't easy, but we all knew, everybody knew if you're on those positions, those were eliminated in this world. So we did that. We had an additional $6 million of this year's money that was used at ESSER to pay for ongoing salaries. So we had to cover that this year and the stuff that we did. We did close 4 schools, not an easy task, but something we've been talking about for years. It wasn't this year. We just didn't have to do it for a few years because of our ESSER funding allowed us to kind of keep that going. And that's what that money was for. And we got the benefit of low class sizes in trying to do that. We did a complete reboundary. And the only reason we had to do that is because of the 4 closed schools. It wasn't a choice. And then we did change the high school schedule from the block. That made a lot of people uneasy. Changed it to the trimesters. That actually provided us an additional 20 less FTE that we were able to cut. And we did go to the 4-day school week. I will say we're going to see some savings on it. We just don't know yet what that is. I actually think on my side, we have some additional open enrollment as a result. And that's why we kind of taken that in consideration to get to a 604 level. But we don't know what that's going to do long-term for us. Hopefully it brings in more because there's no one out of the big districts that are willing to do that 4-day right now. And then we did have staff reductions, district office operations and buildings and that. We tried to look at everything to see what was important in that. Any questions on what we've done to get our big picture down to make sure we were where we needed to be? Tyler?
Nope, we remember doing it all with you.
Well, you guys were a very big part of it, so we appreciate it. So what we have right now, obviously we have the teacher contract negotiations. We're pretty close. I think they're in the last stages of that, so that's great. That's probably one of the earlier times we've done it. So kudos to Waylon and the negotiations team. Our admin are classified. So basically, our step increases, which are basically, which are basically just 1 year more of experience. that money that the state, remember that first slide, I said they got that 3% on the base, that money covers for these positions. So the state gave it, and we give it the way it's basically a pass through.
And that's required, I mean, that's what that money is for. The state says this money has to be used for this.
Yeah,
We can't
yeah.
use it
So
for that.
so basically it's hey, this year, and if we start to go much lower than that, then we tend to get ourselves, because the problem is it's at a point it's a use it or lose it. So if we don't give it, then they'll take it away. The busing contract, we all know what's going on there. ABM, Courtney was able to negotiate a great rate. At first we had a 13% and we were able to negotiate with them a 1%. We're a great partner for us, and we really appreciate that. It did help. The 4-day school week helped a little bit of that as well. And then there is potential 4-day, like I said, coverage costs. We don't know how much that is. They've made a ton of changes, and we think it's going to be actually pretty negligible, but we're not 100% sure. So, and the rule is with USDA is any losses are covered by the general fund. Now, how you interpret that's weird, because they also are sitting on a $2.5 million fund balance. So my belief is until that's gone, we don't have to cover it, but we'll work with the state on that one.
So on that nutrition services, is nutrition services basically budgeting this year with the 4-day week as they were last year with the 5-day week? Just kind of keep.
So when you're saying last year's in terms of the year we're currently in, right?
Yeah.
So
sorry.
yeah, so they've taken in consideration with that and schedules and all that kind of stuff with people. One thing that changed our philosophies from COVID is, as you guys remember, right when you guys came on, we came back in school, but right before that, we had laid off most of our workers. When we brought them in, before that, we were 3 to 5 hours for each person. To me personally, it wasn't a livable wage. When we brought everybody back, we kind of restructured the department. Everybody got an 8-hour wage, and we went to less staff. And because of that, we're able to do this transition a lot easier. The other one was
Good.
way harder to do. And it was way harder to find employees. We don't have the turnover near as much as we used to. And this is going to be pretty cool for a lot of people. I mean, obviously they want 5 days because that helps because fixed cost is our payroll. Right, we're gonna have same payroll costs. The only thing you can reduce is the food costs. So, and we can't raise prices to the federal government because they don't care. They're gonna give us what they give us on our free and reduced lunch. And even raising prices 10 cents would get us like $30,000 on the paid side. We don't get a lot because we just don't have the paid side as much as other districts do.
Satisfied? Okay. Any
All
other
right.
questions on this one, guys?
All right, go ahead, sir. All right, and we talked about the facility funds already. I'm not going to go that. We've kind of
Already
dealt with
said
that.
one.
I forgot we had that slide in, or I wouldn't have gone into that much detail earlier. Okay, going next. All right, so I just want to give you a summary of what's happening. So right now it's a budget hearing, right? So, and then at that point in time, that's when you open up for people to do this. The reality is it's not a question answer. It's really just for them to speak and that kind of stuff for the public to speak. Now there are 2 required action items. We've got them on the agenda today to approve the amended budget, and one for the budget for the fiscal year approval. If you decide not to adopt today, the rule is we have to have an adoption within 14 days of the hearing. If we do not meet that 14 days, we have to have a new hearing and then have another. So my hope is we obviously adopt today, but if not, we have some time before the end of the month for a new hearing. I mean, for the actual adoption. It doesn't matter to me either way. I'm here. I'm not taking vacation, so this is my busiest time. So it's really up to you guys and how you want to do that. So.
All right, trustees, any parting words for Mr. Dewey? And it doesn't look like, Mr. Dewey, that we have any public comment tonight for the budget hearing.
Perfect.
So Clerk Lamont just checked. We have nobody signed up to speak tonight. So if you want to retire to your office, we'll call you soon.
I will.
Or you can sit in the back.
Or you can sit in the back.
I don't think there's any room.
All right, with that, you guys, we are going to head into our student spotlight. We have Boys and Girls Club Idaho Student of the Year, one of our Columbia High seniors. Come on up.
Chair Taylor.
Oh, sorry.
Trustees, yes, this is one of our Columbia High seniors, amazing young lady. I had the privilege of having one of her sisters in my classes when I taught, so I know she's an amazing young lady. Introducing her tonight is Miss Gentry, who's one of our community partners with the Boys and Girls Club. An amazing young story, an amazing young lady, amazing story. So I'll turn it over to Miss Gentry.
Yes. Good evening, Chair Taylor, trustees. Thanks for having us. It's my honor to introduce tonight's student spotlight. Real quick, in the Boys and Girls Club world, we have a program called Youth of the Year. It's a pretty big program for us. We have a local competition, and they have to require a 3.5 GPA. They have to write essays. They have to be interviewed and go through a whole speech, and it's a big process. And we pick one student to represent our club. From there, they go on to state and do it all over again. And this time we have bigger judges and legislators and all that fun stuff for a 2-day process at the Capitol where she has to go through that. And it's my honor to let you know that she won this year's State Youth of the Year. We're super proud of her. And just last week, we were in California at the regional competition. We did not win regionals, but we're super proud of Keisha. She did amazing there. The youth that won had stories that we can't and don't want to compete with. And so she did amazing. We're so proud of her. So it's my honor to introduce Keisha Hernandez. And we'll give her a speech.
Be strong, things will get better. It may be stormy now, but it never rains forever. Unknown. Good afternoon. My name is Keisha Hernandez, and I have been a part of the Boys and Girls Club of Canyon County since 2015. As a 9-year-old at the time, I wasn't aware of how much this club would impact my life. I am very thankful for all the connections and skills this club has gifted me. In 2016, my family and I lost a place we called home. As most of you remember, this was one of the worst winters Idaho had seen in a while. My father, who's only done construction work, lost his job. My mother, being sick and unable to work, was unable to provide any income for our family. And my older sister, Martha, who was also impacted by this great organization and now does resource development for the club, was the only one capable of working. But with her income, she was denied from every apartment application she entered. Homeless, the club was the only place I felt safe. Instantly, this put a strain on our family. My parents are first-generation immigrants and do not speak English. This only added to our struggles. Earlier that year, my mother started her immigration case in hopes of getting a working visa to be able to help with our financial problems. This was a major step in our lives, as she had been in the United States since she was 15. Being in this country with immigrant parents is a challenge. At some points in my childhood, I had difficult conversations for my parents. I experienced discrimination and had to stand up not only for my parents, but for my beliefs. The Boys and Girls Club has shown me that just because I'm a minority, I'm no less important. I'm different and they embrace me. Equality is something so meaningful to me and is something the club entails. You become part of not only an organization, but a family. But in 2018, my mother's application was denied and she entered a deportation order. My life was impacted in ways I could have never imagined. In fear of our family being separated, we prepared for the worst. I left the club to spend more time with my mother. My sister became my guardian, and we sold a lot of our belongings to be able to afford a good lawyer. Waking up in the morning with no motivation for the day ahead of me was so draining. My daily routine was waking up, going to school, coming home, and going right back to bed, sometimes even skipping dinner. This took a toll on my body and my spirit. Having no desire to communicate with my peers or teachers, I lost all connections to reality. And spending many hours of my day sleeping, depression became apparent. I was then diagnosed with severe depression and anxiety. Not knowing how to help, my family forced me to reattend what I call now my second home, the club. With all the things I've learned from the club, I will make this world a better place. I will continue to serve my community with my goal of graduating with a criminal justice degree, and I promise to make an impact by changing the stigma surrounding minorities. My goal is to challenge stereotypes, promote diversity and inclusion, and advocate for those who aren't represented. My club has always encouraged my journey to educate and guide youth in my community. And the Boys and Girls Club has not only taught me to become a strong leader, but an overall good person. My family is still united, and I'm overcoming every obstacle that comes my way today. I thank the club for showing me that it never rains forever.
We're going to have you stay up here. We're going to have you stay up here. All right, you killed it. Trustees, do we have any questions for this lovely young woman or any comments?
Tyler, did you get that recorded? Good.
So I do have a question. So you are a senior. This past year, you just graduated?
Yes,
or
I
you're
just graduated.
Awesome. What are your next step plans? What do you want to do?
I'm attending CWI to pursue a criminal justice degree.
What do you
Very
want? What do you want to
nice.
do with your degree?
I want to become a police officer and eventually do some detective work.
Nice.
I love it.
Nice. How did it feel to be at the regional contest?
It was a really big honor to be able to compete against amazing kids. So yeah, it was really cool.
Well, I believe everything you just said. You killed it.
Thank you so much.
Very emotional for me. It's great.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing to see young people like you
It
just
is.
overcome those challenges.
And she didn't have notes for anybody watching. That all came right out of that pretty little mouth of hers.
You don't have to have notes when you lived it. And you
Yep.
experienced
And it was
It's real.
beautiful.
So that's what I got. It was yeah,
It's
it was real and raw. And I appreciate that. And I thank you for that. And the fact that you've overcome some of those challenges makes me sit here and think, why am I such a wimp? sometimes,
Yeah, I know.
You know, it really does. It really makes us adults check ourselves and go, really, what are we complaining about? So thank you.
Thank you guys.
And if there's anything we can do or I can do to help you with your career, your school, or anything down the road, let us know.
Thank
Love
you.
to be in your corner.
Or keep us updated.
Yeah.
Drop us a note.
I will.
It does good for our hearts.
Thank you.
I'm in,
guys.
yeah, no, we can talk later.
You might want to do what he does at his other job. The ones we don't volunteer at. All right. Thank you so much. Have a seat. And
Thank you.
thank you, Melissa. Or sorry, Mrs. Gentry. All right. We are now going to go ahead and call up Mr. Coffee.
I think I would have rather followed Randy than that.
Agreed. That was a hard act
Have
to
my
follow.
bucket of cold water to throw on everything. Not really. I don't usually get to follow Mr. Dewey once a year, I suppose, on the budget nights. And I was reminded that we are haunted by the financial debacle of now 11 years ago. Last year was 10 years ago and 9 years ago. And I wonder, will I live long enough to come to a budget hearing meeting where it's not mentioned anymore at all?
Ditto.
But then I see the levy spreadsheet or, pie chart. And I'm reminded that it's not actually a ghost. That $3.3 million for salaries is, I learned from Randy, is actually from the debacle. So it's more like a zombie. It should be dead, but it's not, and it's eating our brains. He mentioned the settlement negotiations. We did, in fact, reach a tentative agreement this afternoon, just a few short hours ago, right here in this room. And we're happy about that. Excited, too strong of a word, probably. In Idaho, it's difficult to be excited about your annual contracts. There are some things we're looking forward to, though, to see how they play out. One in particular is the multiplier system for special education staff. We are hoping to replace the extra day contract system for special ed folks in the hopes that provides both more money, more incentive, and a better system to try and actually make that extra payment match the job. Because I'm in the special ed department myself, but it's wildly different than if you're over at Skyview in the SLC2, for instance. And so the fact that we might get the same compensation does not make sense. So I'm excited to see how that actually plays out next year. I'm interested and curious to see how the workday language plays out. Obviously, it's been a busy year. You don't need me to tell you that. So the workday language was quite challenging to figure out how to incorporate the HRS language into the old contract language, the 4-day week, what those non-working Friday contract days are going to look like. And it raised a lot of old issues. What is prep time? What is PD time? How much is enough? Do they all need to be the same across levels? If you've been around the schools, I assume you get the idea that it's a different world to be at elementary school versus high school. And so the idea that the prep time would somehow be equal, is kind of missing the boat. I think it's a different world, different life. Some of the things that we didn't really get to We got to most everything, but one of the things was we hope to get some language in the contract regarding how student discipline is handled and in particular communicated with staff. That's an ongoing issue. The 4-day week, maybe will help some, fingers crossed, of course, but the world has changed. Student behavior is still an issue, will be an issue. And how that's handled and again, communicated across the district is not always the same. Some do it better than others. So there was essentially an understanding, if not an agreement, to create a working group to look at that because that is probably a bigger undertaking than maybe I had thought because it really involves quite a bit of the administrative world. Whose purview is it? Where should that kind of language reside? So looking forward to working on that next year. The other thing that wasn't resolved yet anyway is the 23-24 reopener. And I had hoped that we would, have made more progress on that. And just a word, I think, about that. I don't think the budget mentioned it, but a part of the budget to make the next year's budget work is using some of the supplemental allocation that came to the district at the end of this past, end of the school year. May still coming, I think, but 70% was paid already. And that was essentially, like I don't want to say unilaterally, but we kind of unilaterally agreed to let that amount of money go to make the budget work, in part because that money is going to all 3 levels of staff, certified, classified, and admin. And so we supported that in the hopes that the remaining amount of money, whatever it ends up being, would be on the table for discussion. And so far that hasn't been communicated that that's in fact the case. I know that you have a lot of obligations. This full room tonight, this is a very physical reminder that you have a lot of obligations as a district. I don't think people really understand. You all are just now starting to understand, exactly what happens from day to day to day in a big district like ours. But one of those obligations is to your staff, and you made an obligation in the contract last year. And I don't really see how that contractual obligation can be honored if you don't actually engage in a real discussion about how we're going to treat that remaining supplemental allocation. You can meet more than one obligation. The story of that money is that it really was supposed to have been given into the funding for the quote unquote governor's raise, the magical $6,359 raise that Governor Little said he was giving everybody. The press blithely passed on that kind of mythological phrasing. We got about half. This is certified in particular. Certified got half of that amount. And that was in part because I would call it the incompetence of our state government is how I would, lay that squarely at their feet. They didn't really mean to do it that way, even though the governor had vetoed the bill that would have allowed us to actually get that money. And so this past year, then the legislature, the new superintendent, Debbie Critchfield, promised to try and make that right, at least to some extent. And so that's where that money came from. It wasn't an accident. It wasn't a windfall. It wasn't, a found bag of money on the side of the street. It was really recompense, back pay. And that money by rights should have been already negotiated in the salary schedule. That's where it should have been. But for the incompetence of the state, it's not. And that's really why it's a very much a sticking point and a serious issue. And again, you made the obligation to do that, to not unilaterally decide where you think you need the money, but to decide with us how that money should be treated. And so I ask you to take that obligation seriously. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustees, any questions or comments for Mr. Coffey? Okay. All right, Mr. Coffey, thank you for your time tonight. We'll go ahead and have you take a seat, or of course, you're free to leave. All right, Mr. Yarborough, our community partners update.
Yes, Chair Taylor, trustees. Tonight with us, we have Nicole Pratt, who is with us from the YMCA. She may be awesome. She's right here. She's one of our other community partners, just as a reference again, with the move to the 4-day student contact week and a number of programs to support our community as we navigate through that. And the YMCA is another of those partners. We're very lucky to have her here, and she'd like to take some moments of our time to discuss a little bit about the YMCA. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Yes, thank you for extending this invitation for the Y to come out here and present this evening. we are grateful to be here to share opportunities for Nampa families as well as our Nampa community. Yep, perfect. Thank you. For those of you that don't know the why, aren't familiar with the why, we are a nonprofit organization. We are a nonprofit organization with a mission to strengthen our foundations within the communities, and we do this by developing youth in our programs, by engaging people in healthy living, and instilling that commitment piece to our social responsibility. We work side by side with community partners such as local school districts to ensure that everyone, that regardless of age, income, background, has the opportunity for that Y experience. Yeah, sorry. Every year, we serve close to 42,000 youth within the Treasure Valley. We do a wide variety of youth programs within the valley, and that ranges from childcare, preschool, sports, swim lessons, track and field, day camps. We have our Inclusive Thrive programs, as well as our Y camp up at Horseleaf Reservoir. We serve almost 2,000 Nampa youth each year within these programs, and 1 in 20 of our Nampa youth participate in one of these said programs in the valley. We currently operate 5 different types of programs within Nampa, not within the district, but within Nampa. We are in a year five of our 5-year 21st Century Community Learning Service grant, which allows us to offer free tuition for our after school and summer programs here in the Nampa district. And we serve 96 students between Central, Endeavor, and Sherman Elementary. We are looking into rewriting this grant this year since it is our 5th year. And we really hope to continue these services with the families so long as the funding is still available to us. We also have a really long-lasting partnership with United Way, which is able to fund our part-time preschool program at Greenhurst Elementary that is able to serve 40 students every year. And we also have our mobile STEM trailer, which is our Think, Make, Create lab, or our TMC lab. And I'm sure you guys are familiar with this because I think Nampa District also has a TMC lab. But this is funded through the Idaho Out of School Network. And we're able to serve STEM opportunities within the community by offering family STEM engagement nights, pop-up camps throughout the valley, and a lot more. And this lab in particular, we have lab number 4. This lab in particular, we serve close to 1,000 Nampa students in a given year. We like data. I'm sure everybody else likes data as well. Every year we send out surveys to our families, and we do this by getting feedback from families on what are we excelling at? What are some areas that we might need for improvement for our programs across the valley? This past year's survey for our Nampa families, we did highlight some of those great spotlights. There is a lot of families that really believe that we're doing great work. They love the program. The students love the program. They love the activities that are provided, as well as they love the staff, and how engaged our staff is. As you can see at the bottom, you can see some of our data down there. Like 91% of our Nampa families feel that it is a safe environment for the students to be in. 77% of our Nampa families believe that we are here to support them with their work and their work schedules. 93% of our Nampa families believe that kids are physically active throughout our programs. And 84% of our Nampa families believe that their students are learning new skills throughout that year. In order to continue our success with 21st and within the district, we do have to have those continued partnerships with their schools. We also have to have the continued partnerships with you guys, with the district. We also need to maintain space. And I know space is always a problem across everywhere right now. But we need to have that adequate space so that the children can thrive in our programs. They have to be able to learn, to create, and to move around in any given program that we're in. This coming school year, we do still plan to commit on serving the same amount of students that we have in the past. We did lose one school last year, so we did have Snake River, so we won't have that school this year, but we are serving the same amount of students at Central, Endeavor, and Sherman. Our program will operate May 3rd through, or September 3rd through May 30th. And we do plan on operating a Monday through Friday program, which is a little bit of a change in our schedule. We used to only operate Monday through Thursday. With the Fridays, no school day plan, with the 4-day school week, we did want to try to accommodate as much as we can with working families by providing an 8-hour day within our grant.
That's great.
To offer that service to families. We'll also still commit to our 1-week summer program that is going to operate June 9th through the 12th this year. Oh, so another partnership that we have done with our 21st students is a 1-week overnight camp up at our Y camp at Horse Thief Reservoir. They just got back this last week. So this last week marked our 3rd year of taking our Nampa 21st kids up to camp. And this opportunity for students is really geared towards supporting middle school students, and not only just supporting them in that aspect, but really supporting them socially, emotionally, and that mental health awareness. So that not only are they getting that up at camp, they're also meeting students from across the state of Idaho, making some new friends, and they're gaining some life-changing experience up in the wilderness, up in Cascade. All of this was funded through our grant and through the State Department of Education, and we served 190 students last week up at camp. And a lot of our Nampa elementary students, as well as our Nampa middle school students, had opportunities to partake in that. So it was really cool to see. And we hope to do that again this next coming summer. Some of our next steps in this continued growth with our Nampa families is really being able to provide services and opportunities for them. One area though I would really like to dive into right away is really identifying that community needs and desires. So what is something that we're not doing in the community? You know, what is there something that the Y could be offering as a support service that hasn't been addressed quite yet? Once we know these needs, then having that discussion to see what kind of services are available, like what can we provide to help the community and the needs of the students. And finally, just what are some resources that can be identified, to help with the succession of that. So that's pretty much it.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Nicole, correct?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So trustees, any questions for Nicole? I know that you guys had planned on doing a presentation a little bit, wasn't it like a few months back when we were going to do community partners, right? And so any questions for that, trustees? Great presentation. We really appreciate that. It was very helpful as well as enlightening. Some of that I think we know because of all of the presentations we got about the 21st Century Grant. So there may not be as many questions because we've heard this information a few times now. Anything for you guys,
Quick
trustees?
question, Chair
Please,
Taylor.
yeah.
You had mentioned on the fifth Friday of this new school year, you're working to support the kids as much as possible, whatever that might look like. Is space going to be an issue for you on that fifth day, on that fifth Friday?
We don't. So I want to be able to survey our families once we have our enrollment. We have some families already enrolled. We still have enrollment available. But I do want to survey families to really see who's really going to utilize the program. Because space isn't going to be a problem. When we operate at any of these 3 schools, we're usually using the gym or the cafeteria anyhow.
But you'd be able to use those possibly on a Friday. where school's
Correct.
not in session. You could
Correct.
still use those.
The one issue that we have is, do we operate at all 3 schools? If we don't really have that big of an enrollment piece, it doesn't make sense for us to operate at all 3 schools. We might combine at just one location, like we've done in the past for our summer program, or, you know, some of our other school functions that we've done with 21st Century.
And then a follow-up question. Then are parents providing transportation if it's all at a central location? Or are you providing, you know, like a van that picks up all the kids, or how do kids get there?
Unfortunately, this year we're not doing transportation. We did have the bus company doing transportation from our after-school programming to provide that transportation home. Some parents that do take advantage of our summer program, we've never provided that busing, and it's never really been an issue. So yes, parents will have to provide transportation, as well as we won't be providing transportation home this next school year as well. So
Thank you.
Any other questions, trustees? All right, we greatly appreciate your time and having you here
Thank
with
you
us
so
tonight.
much.
Thank you
Thanks,
so
Nicole.
much.
Thank
All right, trustees, any updates or comments?
Oh, I just wanted to say, you know, this past month, the end of May, this is our first board meeting, like a regular board meeting that we've had since all of the graduations. And I just have to say how excited I was to see all the wonderful kids who have passed through our halls of learning. All of the graduations were really fabulous and really well done. And I'm just so impressed at what our teachers and administrators and staff are able to, how they're able to rally around and support these kids in such an outstanding way. And there was one, I think it was a union, one of the students' babies was graduating with her because they had been at the preschool program, and that was really, really special too. So just kudos to everything that the staff and administration do for our kids.
Love that.
Okay. Well, except graduations, they're always awesome to watch and to witness, those
Yeah.
kids coming across the stage.
Everything that Trustee Pin said, they are incredible. All right, with that, you guys, we are going to move into the public comments section. Clerk Lamont, if you will grab our sheets. That's it? Okay. All right, so again, I just want to reiterate before I call people, there are a couple of things that everybody needs to know. The first thing is when you come to the podium, you're going to state your name, your zone, or your address for us. Then what you will do is look on the screen and you will see 3 minutes appear. You will get 3 minutes to address us uninterrupted, and then the sound will be cut, and that is just the protocol for everybody. If somebody is talking and you agree with what they say, seriously, guys, just put your hands in the air. We will see it and we will pause for it to make sure that it is impactful. With that, I'm going to call Brent Carpenter. And we will give you a minute to get situated and get your notes ready. So you let us know when you are ready by starting with your name.
Sure. Chair Taylor, trustees, I'm Brent Carpenter. I want to thank you for the opportunity to say a few words this evening. I am a graduate of Nampa High School, longtime member of our community. Tonight, I'm here representing Brown Bus Company and our 125, plus employees who are dedicated to serving the students and the families of the Nampa School District. And at this point, I want to take the opportunity to publicly thank them for each one of them for the services that they provide this last school year and in the years past, and we hope going forward. We at Brown Bus Company have 3 main concerns surrounding the transportation bid process and the decision. First, the reliability and continuity of service. We have been a reliable provider for the Nampa School District for over 60 years. In fact, at the pre-bid meeting, district staff shared that there have been no service issues experienced, and in fact, were complimentary of the services we provided during the pandemic. We have the necessary school buses and our fully functioning facility already available to the district and for the use in the transportation system. We have all the necessary school bus drivers ready to start in less than 8 short weeks. Second, speaking specific to the cost, it is well known that the Nampa School District is looking to save money. We are without question the lowest bidder. Over the course of the 5-year contract, there would be a savings of close to $1.5 million. We provide a facility solution that can save the district money in that the district would not have to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars to quickly try to ready a transportation facility at one of the middle schools. And third is the Brown bus bid compliant. Key question. We are absolutely confident that our bid is 100% compliant. We are in the process of timely filing a bid protest according to Idaho law. We feel the protest will establish our bid was compliant. Additionally, Nampa School District Administration asked us for clarification, and we provided those shuttle costs prior to the bid award board meeting on June 11th, and we feel like those were not considered. In conclusion, we will provide additional information in our bid protest for your review and consideration, and we look forward to having further conversations with you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh,
Thank
Actually
you.
thought
Thank
you raised
you.
your hand to say something.
No, I really appreciate that, you guys. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Carpenter, and thank you for being a super respectful audience. We greatly appreciate that. I am now going to call Dennis Blington. Blanton. Thank you. Thank you. And that is not the worst I've ever desecrated somebody's name, so we're all clear.
It's
So I
better
do
than
apologize.
Denise.
Okay. Have I called you that before?
No, but some
Okay,
people
God.
have.
Okay.
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 I too graduated from Nampa High School.
Really quick, I have to have you state your name.
Dennis Lee Blanton.
Perfect. Now you can go.
I graduated from Nampa High School. We're having our 60th year class reunion this year. So I've been a member of this community for many, many years. I'm kind of talking for all these people out here. These are your friends, your neighbors. They are taxpayers in this community. And it's like the rug has been pulled out from under them and myself. One of the big questions I hear around is we're about $600,000 under our competition. I'm not sure exactly about that number. Where does that money go? Do you spend it? Can it be used to help with some of your financial issues? Those are questions I hear from my fellow drivers. We're very curious about that. These are dedicated people. I personally drive for the hearing impaired program. I pick up my kids, I take them to Meridian because that's where they go. It's very gratifying. Every one of these drivers have children that they're on their buses, they're friends with them, they're friends with their parents. We do have issues with student management, but you know about that. You've addressed it tonight. So I'm just here to support these folks and hope that you consider that these people are your neighbors. They are members of your community and they need these jobs. Thank you. Any questions?
We're not able to ask you questions
Okay.
this time, but I appreciate your comments.
Thank you very much.
That is all the comments that we have tonight. I want to take a second to acknowledge how respectful that this crowd has been. I have sat in this room numerous times with a crowd this big, and it has been unruly. And this truly is just a testament to this group of people, and we appreciate that truly. Thank you. From here, guys, we are going to move on. There is nothing else pertaining to the bus contract on our agenda tonight. You can look for further agendas. These are things that will come up by going to the NSD website. We will post our agendas there, and you can follow all of this to know when other meetings will occur where the bus contract may be on the agenda. We now have to move on, and we will be going to the consent agenda to number 7. So with that, I will entertain a motion, trustees. Oh, Perfect. We will go ahead and let you guys go. Yep. If you don't want to stay for our meeting, we totally understand. So
We'd love for you.
we
to
would love
stay.
for you to stay, but we actually totally understand why you are not.
You can see how sausage is made in government.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Does anybody want a health break? Are you guys okay to continue? You guys are good
Yeah, I
to
just
keep
need
going.
to make sure my son made it home.
Okay. Health break or continue 5 minutes? Or keep going?
I'm all right.
Okay.
As I suck down the rest of those 32, 59 billion ounce.
I want you guys to know I thought I was going to die eating that food. And there was And all right, we are now going to move to 7 consent agenda. Trustees, I will entertain either A, a motion, or B, comments.
I move that we approve the consent agenda.
Okay.
My mind went
Second.
blank.
Okay, motion has been made and seconded. Trustees, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Consent portion of our agenda has been approved. We will now move into the action portion, starting with A, the 23-24 amended budget. Mr. Yarborough?
On time, there he is.
I have a question. So we have both the amended budget and the budget. Do we need to approve both?
We do.
Okay.
We do. Two
Okay.
separate items.
Chair Taylor, Trustees, Finance Director, ready to be back for us again. He definitely got in perfectly on time this time. He was watching his office.
I had
so
a good text.
Appreciate it, Randy. And yeah, so this is, he'll be going through the amended budget for the current fiscal year and then the budget for next year. And I'll turn it over to Mr. Dewey.
I actually have nothing more to say. The documents you have in there as action item that you need. And so if you want to say it, you're good to go.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sure.
Trustees, any questions for Mr. Dewey?
No, I want to comment that I appreciate Mr. Dewey and the rest of this administration for your due diligence on the finances of your stewardship.
Stewardship.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Public money, responsibility, and anyone who has questions, these are open books. These are not books that are hidden. And it sounds like the comment you made earlier, these books are audited on a regular basis. So if there's any discrepancy, somebody does notice it. So I appreciate you and the hard work that you do into putting this budget together.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
You
You
know,
got a good team.
On that note, it is amazing, as you were talking through the hearing, it's almost like you have a I know we don't have a crystal ball, but it's almost like you can see into the future a little bit. But I know you've been at this for a long time, and
Yeah.
you see the trends and all that kind of stuff going on. So it really speaks volume to your professionalism to be able to see the things, the trends and the things that pop up at the legislature and other districts are doing and the feds and all this. It truly is, it truly is amazing. Very appreciative because,
Yeah, try to keep up with it.
and I know you got that fiscal,
Don't get my
10
head too big,
10 or
guys.
11
These guys are gonna like.
It's going to happen all the way to.
Yeah, I know,
Don't
I
worry,
know,
we'll
I know.
go back.
I still haven't been able to figure
We'll
out this
go
funding
this way,
formula
and then
thing.
we'll
No.
go back with the compliments for
So
you.
the good and is this a sandwich thing? Is that
Yeah,
how
but
this
even-
works?
Even with the 10 or 11 years ago, even with that financial crisis still hanging over your head, our head, not yours,
Mhm.
but it really is amazing. I mean,
Appreciate it.
as many districts that are struggling right now, my sister teaches in CUNA and they're going through cuts and Caldwell's going through cuts. And so, yeah, I think the public, if they really dig in a little bit and really understand this and see what's going on here, they'd be very appreciative too. So-
We're actually putting together some information that we're going to put on the website about all this as well. They give you guys even more insight. We did some new videos and stuff that is being made right now that should be out in probably another week or two.
Yeah, I really haven't lost any sleep over this budget thing. And that's saying a lot.
It is.
It really, you may have, but I haven't.
Oh, I've lost a lot.
There was something during your presentation that I want to point out, and I appreciate it,
Mhm.
that you did actual people math and not government math.
Yeah.
When you did the 24-25 schedule budget, you said, hey, last year was 630 units. This year we're coming at 604 units. We didn't say, oh, look at this. This is great. We have a 15% reduction in all our services. You actually took the time to do the math to say, what would 630 look like in 2024 24, 25, and then show us the increases there. So I don't know if anyone else in the audience caught that, folks at home caught that, but that's exactly what we want to see. So thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate that.
Appreciate
The coolest thing about the longer that you do this job is that you remember those moments when you two were awe-inspired. I know you're not magic. I know you're just good at your job, but that's a big deal.
It's debit magic.
And that power of prediction,
Kind of magic.
it is. And that power of prediction really just comes from us having the right person in the right seat. You do, you carry a couple of hats for us, both for the board and then for the district. But because I echo what they both said, I want to commend you on how preparatory we were with all the changes that we had to make. You did make it easy. Those could have been hard conversations. You make them feel like we're talking about our favorite cereal, which I honestly believe at the end of the day, again, is another testament to how good you are at your job. You tell us hard things without really flinching. So something else that most people don't know is that you're a leader in your field. And I am constantly impressed by not only our administrative team, but you in your position.
Appreciate
So
it.
yeah.
Thank you very much.
And now,
Yeah, now I know.
And now you're gonna
And I've had a,
And then-
I will say I did not, a lot of it was Greg, Waylon, Courtney, everybody. I mean, we have a heck of a team right now. I can't believe how much we actually got done. This is probably the most change I've ever seen a district do in a year. And we did it in 1 year. And yes, we've ruffled some feathers. But when you go through as much change as we had to come out, I don't think we're unscathed by any means, but I actually feel very hopeful with if we can put this much effort into education next year, which we will, it's going to be a whole nother level of excitement because I don't want anybody to talk budget anymore after this year. Please, none more.
Trustee Ben.
Well, I just have to say thank you for being clear
Appreciate it.
when you're communicating the numbers and what they mean, and firm with the numbers and what they mean. It has been my experience that's not a universal trait in school district treasurers. And so I really, really appreciate that. And I appreciate the way that you were able to break down the complexities of funds, designated, undesignated funds, in a way that people who haven't spent a lifetime digging into school finances can really digest. I appreciate that very much.
Thank you.
And Mr. Yarborough, we'll let you go ahead and anything that you two would like to say to Mr. Dewey while you have this public opportunity.
Yeah, keep going. Waylon, please.
Chair,
Mr. Robert, I would love to hear it.
This is for you.
Yeah, I know. Now I'm feeling a little uncomfortable.
As an administrative team, I really appreciate Randy and I say it in jest, but also his humbleness there to realize that it is a team effort. What we have done in the last year, and when I say we, that's a collective we, including this board, this room, and our staff. It has been really, truly phenomenal to pull off the things we have, given the circumstances that we've been battling against. And so I know there's a lot of stress, a lot of things that come with that. I can attest to that feeling that this year. And as Mr. Dewey referenced, being hopeful for next year, what that's going to mean for our kids. We put our district in a position to be financially stable, to really focus on great work of educating kids and see where we can take our district and our community. So I'm really excited for that. And again, in no small measure to Randy's acumen when it comes to understanding school finance. There's things he explains to me, and my take with him is like, oh, like so.
You just have to do.
Helping me understand that, and then again, what he does here in the district office, help us understand those pieces and how they impact us, and also sometimes, quite honestly, being the voice of reason when we come in with our hair on fire, like, what are we going to do? He's like, we're okay. Here's how we do this. So I'm really appreciate that from him. And
Good
believe it
team
or
as
not,
well.
he and I can talk for hours. Like, I can't imagine how you get that. But
We're all both Denver Broncos.
yeah, that's
so
true.
we're good.
It's true.
I'm
So
sorry. I
really
know.
appreciate that though, and appreciate the work that Mr. Dewey has put in, because it is a lot of hours. His team, again, the backbone of what happens there, and they make him look good. But we really appreciate that, and it's deserving.
Great.
Well, and it helps when my team does all the work and I just sit up here and looking.
Well, and the
all
good news
compliments,
is since
obviously.
you're B, we get to do this for you all again. So if there's nothing else on this
Yeah.
one,
Well,
I will
Hold on
oh,
just a
go ahead.
second. Quick question. Do we need to approve the budget first and then amend it?
No,
or
actually, the
does
amended is
come
first because that's actually this year. It's on the same
Okay.
publication in
Yep.
there, but we do the amended first and then the
23,
second one.
24
Yep.
versus 24, 25.
Okay.
So with that, guys, I will entertain a motion to approve the amended 23-24 budget.
So moved.
Motion has
Second.
great. All in favor? Aye.
Almost.
Great. Mr. Dewey,
One
don't have
more.
to
back
go-
up.
we don't
Now
to
we
go
have the
through
new
this
budget.
again.
And so now we're to this one. This one's pretty easy as well. I think you guys.
Okay.
We're not gonna go
questions.
through all the accolades.
Are we sure?
And we're
I
not doing this
appreciate
again.
that.
One word,
Yeah.
one word.
There's
to remind
there's
people
only
there's
so
nothing.
much this head can
Okay,
take, guys.
got
I'm
it.
just
Now,
telling you
here
right
is one
now.
thing I will say though. I did send an email last week to Greg and Waylon because I noticed it, and I know the other trustees noticed it too, but I just wanted that in writing. And would you share that if you can, if you haven't already with your staff? Because it truly is, it truly is remarkable what your staff have done.
It is
So
beyond,
Chair
and I
Taylor,
hope people can see that.
Chair Taylor, Trustee Kirkman, would you like me to read that or just share that with them personally?
you can just share it.
Okay, perfect. I
If
will.
someone wants to hear it, they can do a public record.
Oh, yay.
Go ahead, Matt. It's you.
Madam Chair, I move to approve the fiscal year 2024-2025 budget.
Second. Motion has been made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, with that, Mr. Dewey, we bid you a farewell.
I think I'm up again, but
Yes.
Are you?
In a few minutes.
Oh, gosh, yes, we have
I
a
see.
treasurer report.
He's in
Oh.
G.
No, I'm
So-
in G.
Oh, you're in G2. Oh, that's right, the public records. Okay, please stay. All right, we will now move over to salary schedules. Mr. Yarborough?
Chair Taylor, trustees, before you are the salary schedules for our classified, our administrators, and our classified supervisors. There are numerous salary schedules in there. Those schedules and rates are exactly the same as last year, as I referenced in the memo you also have before you, with the exception of our food and nutrition services. As Mr. Dewey alluded to in the conversation, moving to a 4-day student contact week, we did have to change those schedules to make sure that we're compensating folks and keeping them financially whole and navigating that dynamic. Would again remind the trustees that food and nutrition generate their own funding, so a bit of a different scenario. What we are going to be able to do, if the board chooses to do that with these schedules, moving our classified and administrative folks down what their experience is, we're able to do that. Different than negotiations for the certified folks, what happens there, but that 3% on the base allows that funding, what Mr. Dewey referenced in his budget presentation. These salary schedules, again, reference that there's no change in the salary schedules, again, other than food and nutrition, but it would be movement for those folks based off of their experience in going through. So we put that before you for your consideration, and I believe I provided a memo with the motion should you so choose.
And Mr. Yarborough, if we have questions, they are directed to you for this one, correct?
Correct.
Perfect. All right, trustees, do we have questions on this?
So then I move that we approve the provided classified and administrative schedules for the 2024-2025 school year.
Second.
Okay, motion has been made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, any opposed? All right, with that, D, the 2024-2025 Union School Calendar. Mr. Yarborough?
Chair Taylor, trustees, tonight we have with us an amazing principal at Union School, and we have Ms. Marcine Guerrero. She is here because of Union status as an innovation school. And within that construct, and something we've done for the number of years that Union has been that, we do need to approve their school calendar outside of what the negotiated calendar of those things are. We have not, we will submit to you shortly that calendar that we've seen models of before, but within the negotiation with the teachers union, the Teachers Association, because of the changes that the district has been experiencing, meaning all the things we went through. Union School next year, it is my understanding, will have the same secondary calendar that all of our secondary schools are on or will be on for the board approve that. The one caveat is that wouldn't be what their schedule now remains. They, as an innovative school, would still be able to look at what their needs are after next year to look at what those things are. So again, the calendar that is presented before you mirrors the calendar that we are going to propose for the district to accept when it comes to staff. The board already adopted the student calendar, the 150-day trimester model that were there. And so she's here to answer any questions if you have any on that calendar, and I can help with that as well.
Trustees, do we have any questions regarding this calendar? We appreciate you making the meeting tonight. We are so
I feel like I
sorry.
should have
We
a
feel like we
question.
could have you to the podium if you would like us to ask you a question
Just
to make the
you trip
driver.
down here
And your
working.
hair looks great.
Yes.
So if you're sure, then I will entertain a motion.
So moved. Oh, I moved. I moved that we accept the Union High School calendar for 24-25 school year.
Second. Motion has been made and seconded. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we will now move on to E, our student handbooks. Mr. Yarborough.
Chair Taylor, trustees, before you, as well as another memo, as well as our numerous building location specific portions of the handbooks. Obviously, a lot of information, a lot to digest there. What I would remind the board is that these portions are very much around the culture and connection of each individual school and their patrons. We already have proposed and the board adopted the district specific portions of the handbook, which deal much more with policy and how we implement the procedure and policy that the board uses. One of the caveats we have is with all the change, and we still have some staff settling, and we still have some other directory type information that may change in these handbooks. We wanted to preface that and look at if the board had any questions or concerns of any of the building specific handbook language, I'll be happy to address those and or go back with any of those administrators. What we do know again is that we are really wanting to get these handbooks out in front of our patrons, as many patrons are going to be in new schools with a reboundary process. And we have administrators who we've been lucky. We don't have new administrators, so they've been around and they know what the culture of their building is and what they want to highlight and bring in the new folks coming into their buildings to help get that going as far as a culture standpoint. We do tend to see the high school or secondary models. The handbook becomes much more of a scenario with discipline. And again, we use that within our district portions that are there. So those pieces are there for your consideration. Again, these are the building specific portions that we have our administrators at those locations make.
I do have one question. So I noticed that the start and end times were listed in the handbook for the schools, which is wonderful. And I just want to make sure that I'm completely understanding those. If those happen to change once we know what's happening with busing, will we need to go back and reapprove those, or just it'll just be updated like a clerical correction?
Chair Taylor, Trustee Benz, I think there's two ways you could look at that. It definitely, if the board approves those handbooks, we could bring those back and making those changes, or it could be looked at as just a clerical change given what those pieces are. Tying that to, again, what the proposed negotiations languages around workday, I feel pretty confident that you've been in the loop and we've discussed that. The one challenge that may come up, as you alluded to, is if the busing schedule impacts that, we would have to deal with that. Right now, I believe from all the information we have, we're in a good spot for those bell times. But once the board approves what that calendar looks like, then we can publish those things and get those out. So again, this is to move that process along to get for translation and moving those forward. But yes, we could adapt that in either way, either bringing them back to you for amendment and or just making that clerical change of time. We could do either.
Thank you.
Chair Taylor, I'm gonna have a question, and Chris, you might answer this also, or Clerk Lamont. In my line of work, we have a board who makes board policy, and then we develop department policy to conform, a little bit more detail.
Right.
And then it goes to the sites, a little bit more detail. Then it goes to even units within the sites, a little bit more detail. My question is, why do we get this far in the weeds and the details with each site? Why not have a policy, district has their direction, and all of these student handbooks for each of these specific sites conform to, but then they're tailored to that particular site? Because if a situation comes up like this with the bell schedule, then that process that needs to change would just go through the administrator at the school and then maybe through Mr. Knopf if it's elementary. And that's it. But it still all conforms to the board policy. But I have a feeling that Clerk Lamont's going to correct me on this.
That's what I was gonna say. So, yeah, so I was gonna say,
Go.
should we start here first? Yeah. should we
Both
start
of
here
you were
first?
biting at the bit to correct me, so,
So per Idaho code,
well, we gotta change that somehow.
Yeah.
Legislators that-
She continued, Idaho code 33512.
subsection, let me just find it. Subsection 6 is where it states, and like that subsection is governance of schools. The board of trustees shall, it doesn't say may. And you have to prescribe rules of discipline, you have unruly and subordinate pupils, but this is where, this is why you have no other option. It says include the discipline code adopted by the board of Trustees and a summarized version therefore in providing in writing at the beginning of each school to teachers, students, in a matter of their grade, level, and academic achievement. But in that is where legal has said that includes all student handbooks, not just discipline.
Okay, but that's what legal says. And legal's, but I'm just wondering, is there a way that we could look at this huge process
I think you could.
to meet the statutory requirements and ease up on some of the, I mean.
Trustees, real quick, are we all in agreement here? Because I'm also in agreement with this line of questioning. We had already approved the district portion. So if we are,
And-
can we have Clerk Lamont email Dr. Russell to bring us a
I think
policy?
that I think we ought to look at this because this is a heavy lift for, and a lot of it is cut and paste.
Yeah.
I get it, but it seems like, oh my gosh, here we go again, cut and paste. Oh, make sure we change the year. You know, that thing, and I get that, but as long as we're meeting the statutory requirements where we provide the discipline and those things that are spelled out in statute, if legal says that means that every school has to have their own handbook, that's fine, but let the schools do the handbook as long as it conforms with the policy. So yeah, let's reach out. I think we ought to at some point down the road.
So all I'm asking is to not let us forget that we want the policy looked at.
The leadership team.
Thank you.
All right.
Chair Taylor, Trustee Kirkman, that Clerk Lamont, thank you for that. I tend to agree. Again, in my memo, I referenced the conversation around HRS language. And that really is the drive getting to making sure our district portion, there isn't ambiguity about those things. We could have continued conversations with our administrators about what actually qualifies as a handbook and what qualifies as building information. Now, to Clerk Lamont's point, I think it is important that we do those things to meet the statutory requirement. And maybe we look at redoing that process because as you referenced, Trustee Kirkman, one of the challenges with cutting and pasting is it's only right for grammatical errors, all those things that happen. So I would be happy to look at that. And I think our building administrators will be happy to look at that. There is a reality that it's been part of our history that we've done that. So we can definitely look into navigating that.
Do we have policy around this, just for clarification, so I can get the policy number that we're referencing? Okay, it's okay if we can't answer now, but I'll just look for handbook policy.
Don't we approve secondary handbooks and elementary handbooks? And maybe that's the level the board only needs to go to and approve those and then let you guys deal with it.
Yeah, it's all the
At
culture
the site
pieces
level.
and the
Anyways, so that's
celebration.
my thought. That's my suggestion. We can address it at a later time, but.
Happy to look at that with Dr. Russell. Trustee Kirkman, thank you.
But for the time being, I move that we approve the building-specific sections of the NSD 131 student handbook for the school year 2024-25.
Can I make a suggestion or do we need a second?
I'm going to
first?
second that motion so you can speak to it.
Maybe we add in there just because we're getting so specific that if there is a change to the start times, that maybe we just add that in here
As a
so it gives them
clerical
enough.
correction.
Yeah.
Okay.
They can go ahead and change it if necessary.
May I amend my motion
Of course, please.
to add that should the times change due to unforeseen circumstances, either start or end times, that those types of clerical corrections can be made without necessitating further board approval.
Is that kosher? Clerk Lamont?
Does that work for what was intended?
I believe they can already make clerical changes.
Okay.
without
Okay, but it
We're
needs to
just
be
gonna do
approved
it.
regardless. Okay,
Okay.
second.
All right.
Motion has been made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, with that, we will move to F, easement for the city of Nampa on West Learning Center campus. Mr. Yarborough.
Chair Taylor, trustees, before you tonight is Mr. Stoffer. Believe it or not, he has not got to the podium yet tonight, which is crazy. Mr. Stoffer does a great job for us. He's going to walk this one through for us.
And I hope not to be here very long myself as well. So Chair Taylor, trustees, before you have something that we have visited about in the previous months as we prepared the board. The city of Nampa has asked us for an easement to install new bathrooms in the West Park. They need to cross our property line in order to put in the sewer systems and connect everything up for those new bathrooms at the West Park. Before you have the scale and the mapping of where everything will be, and also the legal easement that they're asking for. It is something that we think will not only benefit our community, will also benefit some of our teams that participate at the West Park, namely our softball teams. And so before you is a request to grant that easement.
Question. How come Daniel Badger isn't here to do this? I'll ask him when I see him again.
Chair Taylor, Trustee Kirkman, I don't know.
Okay.
But no, in all honesty, because of the work that we had done previously, we felt that there was enough information for the board, and I felt very confident in presenting it to you because of our relationship with the city. We do have frequent communication. I meet with many of the staff on a regular basis at the city. So in all honesty, I did not ask them to join as well. I felt that we would be able to present this to you.
Makes sense.
And with that, I will entertain a motion to approve the easement for the City of Nampa on West Learning Center campus.
Madam Chair, I move to approve the easement for the City of Nampa on West Learning Center campus in Port Neches, Missouri.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, with that, we are going to move on to G, Policy 7270, Property Records. Mr. Yarborough.
So Chair Taylor, Trustees, this is again, Mr. Dewey will be helping us out with this piece, and he was hiding behind the podium. Thank you.
All right.
We won't start with the one word
I
that reminds
appreciate
us
it. This
of you.
one's actually pretty easy as well. As my memo states, ultimately, this is all an accounting thing. It really doesn't do anything for our regular budget or anything. Unlike a regular traditional business where we buy a piece of property a piece of equipment and we depreciate it over time and do those different things with depreciation expense, we really don't do that in fund accounting. Similar to if we were to build a new building, we would basically expense that the day we built it. That's how government accounting works. Standards have upgraded. They have what's called a government-wide statement. We're trying to make us more like a business side that makes us get all of our property together and do that. And they put some, in my opinion, some onerous rules on what they need to do. So what our auditors have given us, this verbiage that West Data has also taken that allows us to get around some of those things, which really it doesn't do any of us any good. And the numbers that we've had before were pretty antiquated. We haven't updated any of those numbers forever because it really didn't matter. Now it makes us do a lot of work if we leave it in the levers that we have. So we just kind of asked if we could adjust the budget accordingly.
Trustees, do we have any questions for Mr. Dewey, or I will entertain a motion?
Yeah, Is
Trustee Sue?
it 5,000 for the entire contract or per item?
So right now it's 5,000 per item. So if we bought computers, we wouldn't actually capitalize anything unless the computer was over 5,000 individually. The new rule states in conjunction, if we were to buy 5 computers and each one of those were $1,000 a piece in one bucket, at that point in time, we'd have to capitalize that bucket of computers. And so right now, I mean, with the prices of inflation and everything, it doesn't take long to get over
Everything's over
$5,000.
5,000.
I know. So reality is what we really want to track. I mean, it's not like what we do in accounting is tracking anything. That's the whole thing. It's all of our equipment for technology is all done through our systems and all that stuff. Everything else, like all the stuff for maintenance is all tracked through our different departments. All this is an accounting thing to book depreciation in our world and for financial statement purposes. And so that's why we're doing this.
This is like FF&E type of stuff.
That's exactly what it is. Yeah. And so we don't want to have to go and capitalize desks.
Yeah.
Basically.
What a waste of time. Chair Taylor, if I could, I'll make a motion to approve the updated policy 7270 and the increase in capitalization threshold.
Second, motion has been made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right,
Batting
trustees,
1,000, Randy.
we are at H, the policy 5480 stipend policy. For some background on this, this was just something that I requested from Dr. Russell because we seem to deal with stipends off and on every year since we have been elected and we don't have any policy around them. And so there's always questions. So just to give you guys background, and I will now turn it over to Mr. Yarborough.
Chair Taylor, Trustees, thank you. That is exactly the case. This is the first draft for a first read by the board of a stipend policy. Some language in there around what those amounts would be to navigate and what those look like. So again, happy to answer any questions that you would have. Again, this is the first draft and we will put it before you if there's any input, any changes, any suggestions. And our memo is again that this is a first draft reading and the board can choose with it how they will.
And then just to add some additional, we just kind of set out looking for policies. None of this was made up. We just tried to find something that already existed.
Correct.
So that's why there may be a lot of edits that want to be made for this, but this was really just to fix our issue. There's nothing here or any language that we are married to. It was just to be able to provide some clarification of how those things should be handled moving forward.
And so to be clear, the action item for tonight is not to approve this, but just to be aware that it's a first reading.
Approve the-
suggest
you have to
edits.
approve the
So we
first
would
Okay.
approve the first read, but there can be edits for a
Okay.
second read. We cannot approve the first read, come back with edits, approve it later.
Okay.
It's pretty open and it goes through 2 reads, right? 3, third and final. So first read, second read, third and final. So this is just that first round and they're just bringing what they found and what they feel to be the best policy that they could come up with.
Okay. Thank you.
But we could also choose to approve this on the first reading, which is an option that the board has too.
Okay.
If you're comfortable.
Exactly. It's 100% what he said, yes.
So if I'm a teacher and I'm doing if I'm coaching football, coaching basketball, that's part of the stipend is they can get up to that amount.
Chair Taylor, Trustee Sue, this is not for those. Those are in the negotiated agreement for those stipends on the supplemental salary schedule. These are specific stipends for different types of work. But so those stipends that, let's say that, for example, we have a curriculum adoption coming up next year and we have teacher members who serve on that curriculum adoption committee, that would be a stipend that could be paid to them. And that's what this policy is dealing with. Again, those negotiated supplemental contracts that are already within the agreement, those are not this pool, if you will.
So where this comes into play is when we gave teachers a payout to give us their resignation early.
Sure.
This policy would outline those types of outlier situations, not what is already contractually outlined. And so this really just tells our administrative team when they need to enlist the board versus having a conversation with the chair or whatever that looks like,
Sure.
so that we can prevent those from happening. Trustee Benz?
Okay. And so just looking through this, a lot of these are simply definitions of the different types of
Correct.
stipends and contracts.
Correct.
And when they would apply, when they wouldn't apply. And so, for example, like the extra duty contracts, those ones are the ones that would be included in that supplemental, correct?
They would be on an extra duty contract, yes,
Right. Mhm. Okay.
or they should be.
Chair Taylor, Trustees Corcomat, one of the challenges is, again, getting down to define what that extra duty is. For example, a high school math teacher and then the supplemental salary of being a volleyball coach, let's say, that's already a negotiated piece and there is that piece there. It's not necessarily an extra duty, it's actually an extra job.
Yeah.
And so there is that piece. And if it was for math to do whatever was under that, that would be the conversation.
As
So.
per code, it's anything outside their contract.
Yeah.
So it's,
Yeah.
I mean, it's clear for me. but
Yeah,
maybe
no,
not
no,
for
no.
Well,
others.
and I think what's really nice is that it just literally says for extra duty is in accordance with law.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's pretty self-explanatory.
Okay. So then, do we just make a motion? Can I just make a motion to approve the first reading?
You can.
Okay.
You can just make a motion to approve the first reading. Everybody has the policy. Changes can even be made at the second reading.
Okay.
Policies changes can be made at any time that this board so see fit.
Okay. So I move that we accept the first reading of this policy as drafted.
Second.
Okay, motion has been made and seconded. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Were you an aye?
Mhm.
Okay. All right, so that passes. This is the first, and this may come back, guys. And again, this is just something that we found. It's rough and we haven't had anything like this before. All right, with that ends the action portion of our agenda. And we will now move into the information items
It
and
just sounded
reports.
so funny. That was the action portion?
That was.
I'm beat.
Chair Taylor, Trustees, I hope we don't have too much more for you, but we do have the facilities update. Mr. Stoff will come and share that with us, where we're at with the numerous projects and things we have going on.
I thought it was putting you out of your misery.
In your back. That's what you said, in your back.
Chair Taylor, Board of Trustees. This is not miserable. This is the fun part of our job, right? We're improving things. We're working forward to bringing kids back in the buildings. Just want to give you a quick update on where we are. Things are progressing according to our schedules. Everything seems to be on our timelines that we have provided. West Learning Campus is a little bit ahead of schedule. I want to say that, knock on wood, so it stays there. But they are ahead of schedule. We're looking very favorably for them being able to complete on time and then starting to move both of our alternative programs into West Learning Campus as we have planned. Also, just a quick update. We have been moving a lot of the other components in adjusting to the school closures and outfitting schools. That process has already begun. We're well into it as well. Very appreciative of our team. They have been working incredibly diligently to make sure things are happening and accommodating as much as we can.
You're talking about like moving
maintenance
equipment and
moving
things like
equipment.
that.
They have done a fantastic job. And it's just something I would like to acknowledge them for all the work that they are doing. They are doing things right now that aren't necessarily some of their specialties, but they're out there moving and getting things into place to make sure that we have everything that is needed for our students when they arrive in August. Also, just a quick update. If you've had a chance, you've probably seen the Skyview turf being placed in. That is about completed as far as the turf component. The track is on its way as well. They should be completing that within the next week and a half. So there will be no stripes yet on there because we have to wait for everything to cure. So the last step will be the striping, and that happens a little bit later in the process. But things are moving. Again, you can see the graphic. That is a real graphic. That is not a superimposed. That is what the field actually does look like.
Nice field.
It looks amazing. Nampa High is also on its track. We will see some things happening here in the next few days as far as they'll be putting their crown and capping the field, and then we'll start to see the field being rolled out very shortly.
Okay, I just have a question. You know how it says Nampa in blue on one end of the field? Is it going to say Nampa in red on the other end of the field? I know you guys are so mad at
No, we have to
I-
put the visitors in.
So are
Chair
we
Taylor,
another color,
we
or are
can
they
give you,
both blue?
there is some graphics that we do have out there. Tyler is, I know, already furiously looking through. I looked over and he's scrolling to find one of the graphics that we do have. And if he finds it, we'll put it up there for you to be able to
Okay.
look at it.
That
So
was-
the end
thank
zones
you.
are both blue and the lettering is red, outlined in white. So
Can't wait to see
yeah,
it. Hey, that was all I needed to know. I just saw a little preview.
all of them look
and
great.
just wanted
I got to
to
be
know.
honest,
Oh,
all
they
of them
look
look
fantastic.
fantastic.
Yeah, and I just can't wait
I
to
think,
see how
and I
that
think our
looks.
students are gonna love it. And
I do
think
too.
I've already been several calls have come in to ask when they can start playing.
Yeah.
And,
And now
so-
I love that I asked that and you were like, no, Brooke, they're both red, white, and blue. Like you made it even better. It's like a 4th of July gift for me.
there will be, there it is. There's the kind of the overall graphic
That
of
is
it.
so, stop.
So there's, while we're at it, we can
Stop.
go ahead and show the Columbia. Columbia will be breaking ground anytime this week. We're working on the sprinklers currently and capping off the main lines for the football field. That has been a little bit slower than we anticipated because there were 3 main lines that run underneath the field. So we're rerouting those right now, and it's taken us a little bit longer than what we anticipated. But they will be breaking ground anytime. Our partners are bringing in a second construction unit or excavation unit, excuse me. So we'll have 2 teams that would be working on Columbia to help catch up for the time. And there's Columbia's just to kind of give you a look at what their field will look like.
So these fields are all gonna be ready by football,
Yep,
spring?
we're still,
Have
we're
spring
still,
football.
August 1st is the deadline. Spring
Better
football,
hurry
no,
up.
we did not
Spring
meet
for
spring football
football.
deadline. But August 1st is our deadline for all of these. And included in that is not just the fields, but it's also tracks and tennis courts. So that is part of the other
Yeah,
3.
fantastic.
And our middle schools
Fantastic.
are also, East Valley Middle School is just about done. They should be finishing either tomorrow or the next day. Again, that is without the striping.
Stripes, right.
That comes in at a later phase just due to the curing that needs to take place.
So I was
for
gonna
the-
ask about that, because I noticed that track was done, and I didn't know that we were gonna do the middle schools too, but that was in part of the levy money to also do that, okay.
Trustee Taylor, Chair Taylor, Trustee Kirkman, that was part of our package. So when we put it out,
Right.
we not only did the high schools, but we also touched every middle school.
Nice.
So at the middle school level, just as a reminder, South is getting a refurbished track. East Valley got their track, and then Lone Star will have their tennis courts and their tracks redone as well as part of this package. We really maximized as much as we could to get the dollars to be stretched as far as we can. And to be very honest, our partners have been great in helping us stretch those dollars as much as possible. To date, I haven't had one change order yet. They've stayed true to their bid.
Very good.
And just to clarify, did you say that the East Valley's tennis courts are also getting, no, oh.
Chair Taylor, Trustee Benz, the East Valleys were done 2 years ago.
Yep.
Oh,
They
okay,
look pretty good.
okay.
So that's why,
It's been a
and then
minute then,
South,
since
and
I've
in
been
South at the same time. So those 2 tennis courts have been done previous to this levy. And that's why they were left off of this levy.
Awesome, thank you.
Tyler, is this tracker you on our website? The tracker?
Yes.
Yeah, I love it.
Yep.
So we've talked about a lot of things. I just think that this tracker is incredible. This is a live tracker that's on our website. You can click right
I thought you
there.
were talking
Actually,
about like the track.
No, the
No,
tracker.
it's
It's a tracker.
Yeah.
It is. And I just think it is the coolest thing that our community can track
Yep.
this in real time. And I have to give a shout out right now again to what we provide on our website, because not only do I love that we do this, but I also love the creative use of emojis. I'm serious.
Chair Taylor, this is a new part of our project that we've implemented this year for any of our management. I've included this link in the board documents as well, and it's a live document on our webpage for our community to look at, as well as how we're
Just
using
so cool.
their tax dollars. And you can kind of see how the progression is going for each of the sites.
Yeah, it's just
We
killer.
have them categorized by school. And then at the very bottom, as you scroll down, is an overall timeline of each one of the projects and the subsections.
And I love that graph moves over and it's day by day. I mean, this is just great work, guys. It really is. This is just such a great step for transparency and staying up to date with all of these projects. And then the pictures that you're updating in real time are incredible. Kudos on this.
Tyler, will you go back to the homepage and click to it, please? Because my brain's not functioning as fast as your fingers.
So while you're looking at that, I have a question. West Middle School, I had asked Superintendent Russell about how we can continue to utilize Roberts Field, how we continue to honor his name. So is there an update on that?
Chair Taylor and Trustee Sue, we have been working with some other partners as far as looking at MOUs on how that field could be used. There has been some interest, and we're working through them. I know there is a club, there's a track club team that is very interested, that has been there in the past, and they're interested in continuing that relationship. And so there is some components that we are working through with them. Obviously, we have some other partners with both PAL and Optimist that we're looking at, and as well as the opportunity to utilize those fields. And there's also a lot of interest in utilizing some of the turf fields for championship games and things like that. So we're navigating those as we move. We'll probably have more for the board as we get closer to the start of those seasons.
Thank you.
Okay, trustees, any other questions for Mr. Stauffer? Do we all want to give one gracious word? No, I was just joking. That was for Randy's
We're good.
benefit. Mr. Stauffer, we appreciate your time. Thank you. We will now move on to B, the enrollment average daily attendance. Mr. Yarborough.
Chair Taylor, trustees, before you is the enrollment report. As we're finishing the year, that's kind of the final for this school year. Be happy to answer any questions there. It's our normal process, just so we can kind of be tracking what's going on there. Trustee Benz.
I have a question, just something that stood out to me tonight. Is our third grade class like the largest class right now? Or they're most at school?
Okay, let me pull it up. I apologize. I
Sorry.
didn't see it, so.
They're a good class.
Oh, good. Okay, good.
Without looking at your own board, I couldn't tell you whether the largest or not. I do know they're a large class.
Yeah, they seem larger, so, yeah. The only place, Centennial's the only one that, the third grade class is the smallest one. Central, it's the largest. Endeavor, largest. Roosevelt, largest. Greenhurst's kind of wimpy, but Iowa, not quite the largest. Sherman.
Sure.
So, like 10 more than everybody else.
Chair Taylor, Trustee Benz, if I'm reading that correctly, though, even that aggregate amount, the grade 3 is actually 12 less than our second grade, as far as one of the challenges that we have. And when we went back to what our mitigation strategies were and looking at how that filtered in, we do see a drop of enrollment from from kindergarten all the way through. It is encouraging to see some of those cohorts over 1,000. That's a really good mark. But as a reminder, some of those cohorts used to be above 1,200. So that's an accurate picture of where we are, I believe.
Okay, any other questions? All right, we will then move on to the superintendent report. Oh, sorry.
Financial treasurer.
I'm so sorry, Mr. Dewey. I'm so sorry. I checked it off because from you so
It's
many-
okay. I don't have
literally
I don't have
heard
another
from you so many
PowerPoint
times.
because
I
it's pretty
did.
much the same as I've said last month. Nothing
Right.
new to say.
I think this time of the year, it's.
It's pretty much status
all
quo
rolled
right
into
now.
one.
Sorry. I'm so sorry.
It's okay.
Thank you, Mr. Dewey.
Thank you, Mr. Dewey. All right, D, superintendent report, Mr. Yarborough.
Chair Taylor, trustees, point of clarification. I have the 3 points I'm going to talk about. Do I have to talk about them in order? Because I was going to do that. Okay. Thank you. Just want to update the board on the negotiations piece. As Mr. Coffey alluded to, we did reach a tentative agreement today to bring to the board for consideration. In the context of, again, the year we've had, I actually am I'm really proud of the work we were able to do with the association. They came to the table many times. We did have a long period of negotiation, if you will, as far as the number of months we met. Now we met, every other week or so, but did some really good work on that workday language, and working with our staff through of the challenges that we're facing. I think it's important to shout to our association as well, with all the changes and challenges we went through. They came along with us for that, and that's a really important thing for us to recognize from the association standpoint, our staff standpoint, and I just really would like to highlight that. And also, even though it's June 18th, we closed, I believe, negotiations last year. It was on June 2nd or June 3rd. We're only a couple weeks later in the context of what we've been in. And in many districts, I was at a superintendent's meeting today. There's 2 districts that haven't even started negotiations.
Yeah.
So we're in a really good spot to be able to say, hey, where are we at? Bring something to the board to consider, and as well for the association to consider. And I think it's a really good scenario for our staff, and we are working towards that number one interest of recruiting and retaining high quality staff. I think we're in a good spot that way.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think them coming alongside and walking with the district and vice versa in these tumultuous changes that is not lost on me, because these negotiations, they could go into. I mean, we could start the school year without a contract. I mean, honestly. So, yeah, kudos to them. So I appreciate that.
Really appreciate the work on that, and the work of. I do need to shout out by name a couple of our administrators, Mr. Barber, Mr. Channer, Ms. Parsons, and then obviously Mandy Simpson, former employee, but really helped out with a ton of things there in helping our team. And again, then our NEA representatives, Leslie Dudman from Snake River, Jamie Hazing from Centennial, Brian Coffey from Nampa High, Veronica Maple from West, and Shauna Alt from East Valley, and then John Crable from Skyview. Again, a really good team working through some things there. And the most important, quite honestly, is Tammy Wallen, my executive assistant, the notes and things she does in there. Like
Everybody on track.
a great job of her taking care of us and keeping us on point. So just like to say thank you for that. Next 2 things I would like to take us through a really big highlight. Superintendent Russell, we shared this with our administrators at the end of the school year. Just want to highlight some student achievement for the year. And I think it's really awesome for us to see. Tyler, do you have that PowerPoint? So really, really, really good work by our administrators, our teachers. When you look at what we've done from the 22-23 year to the 23-24 year, the gains across the board when it comes to our district ELA from grades 3 through 11. Saw some really significant gains there, and really proud of that work. And we're not done. We know we still have work to do. We want to get back to at or above state average is kind of our target line, but obviously we'd love to be setting that state average and achieving even higher. So we'd like to just, again, highlight that of the gains that were made this year. That's in no small measure to our curriculum instruction team, and quite honestly, our elementary executive director, Mr. Scott Knopf, and some things he put in that last year when he was the curriculum instruction director, bringing along these gains and helping us come up with some comprehensive testing ideas, some support from administrators, support for teachers. So again, really excited where we're at, and know we still have a lot of work in front of us, but it's exciting work.
17% increase there from in 11th grade.
I do not want to downplay that at all. I think that one of the things we realized at the high school level was the investment of just taking the test seriously probably accounts for a portion of those. But I don't want to minimize by any means the amount of work that our staff did do. But really just that focus on, hey, this is important. It's something for us to consider it and help our students understand that. I'm really big bump there and excited to see where we go. And you'll see that within the next couple slides.
Well, if the staff can help our students take the test seriously, maybe that's all that's needed.
At the high school level, that's a significant challenge in and of itself.
get it.
So
But it's so amazing to be back to having these conversations just 4 short years after COVID.
Yeah.
Yes.
Actually,
Yes.
I don't even like saying that word, 2020.
Yep.
Not even that
The
year.
time.
The time warp. Yeah,
Next
whatever we
slide,
call
please.
it now.
Mathematics, again, seen across our grade band, that's amazing work for us and where we're at and where we're looking at going. Again, growth in every measure. Math, make no mistake about it though, math is a spot that not only the Nampa School District, but most districts in the state, and I would say around the country, maybe the world struggle with. So we know we still have work to do there, but the fact is the trend is going back in the right direction. It is really encouraging for us to seeing where we go next. There's some work from the State Department. Again, I was at the Superintendent's Network today and working with some of their curriculum instruction folks, some support in math coming and some ways of thinking about math differently, particularly for the high school level, but then also looking at what we're doing from a foundational perspective for elementaries and middle schools.
And then just a question, and I don't know if it has anything to do with it, it's just top of mind. So I know we recently adopted a new elementary ELA curriculum. When are we due for a math curriculum adoption?
Great question, Chair Taylor, Trustee Benz. Next year is when we're looking into that. That'll be something in August. We start to lay that out for our K-5 math adoption and some conversations about math into other levels, as well as our 6-12 ELA adoption. We're up for both of those and navigating that through. So that is coming.
And just for clarification, if I'm not seeing the grade reflected, were there no gains made?
So in the ISAT testing piece, I believe there is one typo there. It should say 11 and 11.
Okay, that's all that I needed
Yep.
to know then. Okay, good.
We
That
don't
helps,
test in
because
the
I
9th and
wasn't,
10th grade yet.
and I wasn't sure why I was seeing an 8th, 11th, 8th. Okay,
Yep.
thank you.
We-
Okay, thank you.
We don't test in
Thank
that
you.
year. So.
Great, thank you.
Yep. Next slide, Tyler. Just some shout outs and again, recognition for a particular few schools and particular highlights. What I want to preface is that there's a ton of celebration to go around with all of our district. These are some of the highlights from a proficiency standpoint. So where they got students who are proficient. I think there's also a conversation of growth we see in a lot of our schools and what happens there. But Lake Ridge 5th grade did a phenomenal job of hitting that level of proficiency for their students. Really good hard work there. Some strong teachers in that grade level for sure. And they definitely led the district, if you will, in, hey, they've really set the bar high. I'm so really proud of what they were able to bring to the table.
How do we celebrate this?
So we do it in a lot of ways, Chair Taylor. The biggest way we do is administration. The timing that we get this data is the hard part. This comes out right at the end of the year. So really what we did this year and this PowerPoint was part of that conversation. With our kind of end of the year admin wrap up, we brought up these things, showed these things, talked about what our work is going to continue to be, to shout out what those celebrations are, and then other conversations that we need to continue to have. And so we're looking at those pieces. And then obviously these buildings and their leaders take that back to their teams and work on what that looks like. Again, I think it's really highly important to stress of where we start with kids and where we get them to.
Right, just the amount of gain that
measure.
can be made, yeah.
And we also need to keep closing the gap for all of our students, regardless of what school they're in. But looking at those things, I think we're on the right path to be able to start doing that. And then realize
Good,
that's
okay,
where we
good.
get to.
And because of the timing of this, do the kids ever get to experience the celebration with this?
Typically with ISAT, Chair Taylor, Trustee Benz, not as much because again, sometimes we've had school years where we've actually been out before we get the data in.
Right.
Now, that being said, we're really working on helping everything from our district goals when it comes to student achievement down to our building level, down to our team level, down to our teacher level, down to our kid level. They can see and understand that growth of where they are and where they're moving. That is more readily accessible in some grade levels because again, certain things pop quicker, if you will. K3 IRI, for example, that data and using iReading, what happens there is much more readily available. ISAT's a little bit harder with the work, again, we're putting in and have done this last year of cycling around the right ISAT targets to help support our students to be successful in ISAT. We hopefully can get to that spot where kids know exactly where they're at or have a good prediction of how they will score on those assessments. So a couple other pieces there, Tyler. We want to do the 60% club as well. Again, Skyview and Columbia, when it looks like, again, what they were able to do, take that up to, again, right at state average, if not a bit above state average. I can't remember. They were just a bit above. It was 56 or 57 for the state average. Mr. Knopf, you remember? So 3, 4, 5 percentage points above state average. So again, really good work. And obviously Nampa High coming along as well. But those two schools, we call it our 60% club, did a really good job of getting to that level. The next slide, again, these are things we shared with our folks at our closed down admin. State average or above school and grade level, again, seeing what that looks like from our specific grade level and in those 3 categories. The one thing with science, we're still working on exactly how science will work out. And again, science is only tested in 5th, 8th, and 11th grade. So some differences there as far as what you see and how that's tested. I'm still working through exactly how we're going to navigate science, but working towards that. Math and ELA have been the focus. Next slide, Tyler. Again, and then this one here, a year-to-year grade band growth of 7% or greater. A grade band, again, we went with, so obviously our K2 students on the IRI do not take the ISAT, but our 3-5 do. So that's a grade band percentage of what that looks like and where they hit. Then our middle schools, and then obviously our high school piece.
And I just want to make sure I'm completely understanding. Did both CHS and SHS improve 27% and 35% respectively on the ELA ISATs?
Chair Taylor, Trustee Benz, that is correct.
Okay.
That's a incredible increase.
It is. And again, I don't want to diminish anyway, because I think that's
Right.
phenomenal work. I think there is a piece of systemic things we did to help kids understand it's important. And also then the great teaching skill of teachers actually preparing kids better. So I think that's a combination of what those look like.
It's the whole kit and caboodle, really.
And then tangent, whatever became of the proposed requirement that students be proficient in the 11th grade ISAT in order to secure college entrance in Idaho, whatever became of that?
Chair Taylor, Trustee Benz, to my knowledge at this time, that has not went through. It was a conversation that was talked about at the state house level, but that has not passed yet.
Okay.
But I do know that is a conversation being had. And again, I think we put ourselves in position, if that does come to fruition, we've started to lay the groundwork to be successful and help kids understand that. It is really unique, though. I was in the meeting I was in today as well, like the bid for SBAC to be that's coming up for bid next year. So there's these alignment problems as well that the state deals with. And I know we have that, and we'll navigate that. But those are pieces that we will have to navigate and see. I think that's a part of the conversation, as well as if there's, for lack of a better term, an arbitrary test of, hey, that's going to, well, sometimes that's a good or a bad thing. The old world used to be that you had another rubric or a way to help students become proficient, because you may have a student who, for whatever reason, didn't take the ISAT. Maybe parents opted out. Maybe they had an issue that way, or maybe something happened. They didn't score as well. And there's still plenty of kids that are college capable. And it's not just one test, one measure. So.
And when the bid for the SBAC it comes up, are there opportunities for districts to present questions, propositions regarding fidelity, or the quality of the tests?
Chair Taylor, Trustee Benz, that was another of the pieces of the conversation in the superintendent's meetings I was at today, is how does that look? And again, talking with the State Department, I think the State Department is doing some really good work in trying to align what the state is doing to support curriculum-wise from the Department of Education. I know some folks there, I think they're really making some strides. Yes, that is a conversation of how do we help shape what that, they're called blueprints behind the scenes, and what are the blueprints behind those tests and how those perform. Now, SBAC is a multi-state consortium, as are the other one or two major testing companies. So yes, there is space for input. To how much that input will be taken, I would just be guessing. So
okay.
Can I get a clarification on the next slide? I just want to understand, when I'm seeing an increase in our IRI only, what is that alluding to when I'm just seeing an IRI?
Tyler, can you put that one up? Yep. So IRI only, can I ask which one you're looking at?
So there's one on Greenhurst and Iowa where it just says an IRI 10% and an IRI 10%. And I'm not sure what I'm looking at when it just says IRI.
So the Idaho reading indicator is something that we do K2 as far as state testing. Is it K2 or K3? Excuse me, K3 state testing wise. And that piece is, again, a measure of what the percentage growth was there, Chair Taylor. I think most of our schools had good growth in IRI, but those are the ones that were, again, 7% or greater.
Oh, I see, 7%.
So
And is Greenhurst our only school that had a percentage increase in ELA, math, and IRI?
I believe so.
Obviously, based on our thing. That's incredible too.
And third graders are the lucky ones who get all the tests.
As are 11th graders,
Well, they don't get the IRI.
but they get the SAT.
Oh, true. Point taken.
Tyler, sorry?
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Nope. Chair Taylor, Trustee Kirkman, any questions? I was just going to.
That's all I was gonna say. Are there?
I was just gonna say the next,
Yep.
so this next year coming up with all the changes and the
Yep.
4-day week and all that, I think it's gonna be interesting to see. I mean, are there I guess, I don't want to get too detailed, but are there plans to like focus on making sure that we mitigate some of those and increasing the test scores and all that other kind of stuff? Because I think we might see that effect
Yep.
in results next year.
Chair Taylor, Trustee Kirkman,
One way or another.
but one of our big theories of action, if you will, is by going to a 4-day student contact week and actually protecting time better for teachers to plan
Sure.
and intervene. We are using that as a mechanism to keep raising that level. So definitely that is our theory of action. And now we need to go prove that. There will be, undoubtedly, there will be challenges that we have to navigate through and figure that out. But using student achievement, which that's what our mission is. If we use that as the metric of are we being successful, then we put ourselves in a spot to be on the right track and continue that growth. We know we still have work to do. I think every teacher would say yes, but it is important for us to celebrate that movement forward and that progress toward a goal.
1,000%.
And one of the parts of HRS, Courtney reminds me often in HRS language and indicator 1.7, one of the most important things you can do is help people celebrate along the way. And what does celebration look like? Are you celebrating the low hanging fruit of, oh, we just showed up today? Well, with chronic absenteeism, that might be an issue. That's another conversation for another day. But that idea of, are we actually really seeing good growth and good progress toward what those goals are? And at the end of the day, if we get that down to the kid by kid level, that's when we're going to really see ourselves start to close gaps. Because we do have students who, I'll use an analogy, that start on the goal line and some start on the 50-yard line, and they all got to run to the other goal line.
Mhm.
We got some kids who start on the 60-yard line, right? And so figuring out how we navigate that and what we do, but at the end of the day, we need to get all the kids from this goal line to that goal line. And so figuring out how we do that and making it systematic to support those kids with great staff. We got staff who are really working hard. I think we are starting to get better at aligning and getting clarity and familiarity about what we're doing. I think we're in a really good spot and we're going to see some really amazing growth. We're excited to focus on that next year because that'll be the anchor that helps us navigate in the implementation of the changes that we put in place.
Madam Chair, to that point.
Yeah.
I want to recognize the educators in our school district for their incredible work, the school administrators for driving us home. So bravo, that's great. These are great numbers.
I agree. I would agree with that. One last clarification, just can you define what a bubble student is for me?
Fair, Tyler, keep the last slide back up. So
Good. So glad. So glad.
one of the things that typically happens within an intervention system, if you will, there's a lot of the educational research is there's 3 tiers. There's tier 1, which should hit all of your students. Here's the core instruction. It works and meets 80% of your kids meets their needs is the numbers thrown around. The next tier is the tier 2 kids. I promise I'm gonna answer your bubble question. I'll get right to
No,
it.
I get sure.
That tier 2 is the students who need some more intervention or need a little more teaching or something a little bit different way, but with that intervention, then they're successful. And the top of that pyramid is what we would call our tier 3 kids, which really, really intense intervention. And sometimes some of those students may be a special education student who needs special designed instruction or curriculum is the idea. The bubble kids are those kids right on as you go to each of those tiers. And when you think about attacking and moving data, if you understand how close kids are and you say, hey, let's take care of the kids that are right here to make sure we're really intentional to move that up. Well, then what happens is you move them up and then you have your next set of bubble kids that you can move up again. One of the challenges that the year 2020 or COVID presented was our tiers got out of whack. We had a lot of kids who needed tier 3 intervention levels. And the system isn't built to handle that. The way that we need to support those kids, we can't do that. So bubble kids are, how do we get them across? That doesn't mean we don't support the tier 3 kid and the tier 1 kid. It means we're really intentional to get down to the data of, wait, I got 10 kids that are 4 points away. what are we missing there? What are
Got
we,
it.
so it's really getting intentional and getting down into the details of what is happening with kid X, Y, and Z. And as we write the system, then kid X, Y, and Z are all of our kids that we know where each kid is at. And we take the load off of our teachers of feeling overwhelmed with half their students at tier 3. So that's the hope. And again, our theory in action. So,
Got it.
just next year, some of the things we're looking at doing, again, continual work on highly reliable schools. I think that is a very, very important thing for us. We've stuck with that for 2 years in education circles. That in and of itself is rare. The fact we're going to a 3 is really rare. And we're going to stick with it for a 4th because it is proving to be something that's going to help us navigate and continue to become, to have less variance between the educational opportunities and success that our kids are exposed to. So we can really become a highly reliable system and have highly reliable schools with that as well. Better alignment of our curriculum assessment, as we talked about the bubble kid scenario, just talked about, or bubble student, if you will. Sometimes it's hard to think about labels. We just use that term and it's on the bubble of moving from one level to another.
You're not out in the schools calling them bubble kids.
We are not calling them bubble kids. And then finally, continued familiarity with the assessment. We have new staff. We need to train them and help them PD. What does the ISAT look like? Am I asking the question in the way that the ISAT, for example, would ask that? Well, we might ask them the same question, but in a different way, and we're not preparing the kid for the actual test. I always use the example of when I go to take the driving test, I don't get asked to ride a horse, right? So understand how that's going to look, right? So those are the things on student achievement. Just wanted to share with the board.
On the bubble students there, do you think there will be a bigger challenge with the little bit of increase in class sizes? I know it's not a huge significant increase, but it seems like those would be the students that might get lost, if you will, with the bigger class size.
Chair Taylor, Trustee Kirkman, I think that would be a very relevant conversation, Trustee Kirkman. However, with what we've been able to do, our elementary class average size right now is 22.7.
I know it's
So
not.
And what we did find is that with, and this is, Greenhurst did a fantastic job. They also had a very small student population, so that intensity of what's happening there, we need to equalize that across our district. So that conversation. Now, the good news is we have those staff going with students. We have systems getting more efficient and more aligned. So yes, we should be able to address that. It is a great question. I think it's our job to make sure that we don't let those students get lost and we really focus on where those kids are and how we take them to the next level.
Great, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep. Last piece is something that obviously I appreciate the board and what you guys have talked about, all the thanks, all the administration, but we also want to take a minute as this Board Appreciation Month to thank all of you. What you do is quite honestly a thankless job. We understand that. We all sometimes pay attention to social media. That's a really negative piece. It does take courage to lead through the year that you've led as a board, and we are very appreciative of that. It's really hard to make everyone happy. In fact, it's impossible to make everyone happy. But we really want the board to understand from the administration standpoint and our district of how much we appreciate how far this board has come and how far our relationship has grown and where we're at now to be talking about these things rather than the distractions that don't let us get to student achievement. And so really want to say thank you to the board from the administration standpoint. And nothing we can do is ever enough because, again, it is a thankless job. And I'm going to ask you for 3 more meetings in the next few days. So just know that we appreciate you. We appreciate what you do and what you bring to the table for the students of Nampa and being willing to, again, like we talked about with the association, come alongside and learn with us. We don't have all the answers, but we do know that we can get a lot of heads together and solve some really complex problems. So thank you for your work and for your attention to the students of Nampa and our staff.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, with that, you guys, we have added. Courtney, did you want to come up and give us each one word that you appreciate about us? Fair. I wanted to know that I think it takes a special person to volunteer to lead. And I feel like I grow as new trustees are elected and as new trustees come in. I grow as a person. And this job has just created so much opportunity and growth for me as a person. It's just incredible. So I thank you guys for being up here. And it is different. And nobody quite knows the job until you serve in it. And it is truly an active service. Yeah.
Always a learning curve.
Anything else that anybody wants to say with that?
Well, I have a question about the possible agenda items.
That's where I was going next. Okay, so really quick, already added to the possible agenda items, just on the update, we have emailed in already on the policy for the handbooks, et cetera. And then is there anything else that we want to add or talk about?
Yeah.
I did also make sure that we added the update from the ACLU, because that was indicated in last month's board meeting, and so I did add that to our agenda setting tool as well.
Okay, excellent. And then the question that I have is the ISBA proposals are due, so the suggestion of policy, suggestion, whatever, are due early July, like July 12 or something like that. Is that something that we would need to do as a board in open session? Is that a work session? Is that could we even want to do that?
The ISBA resolutions.
Yeah.
If the board submits any, they have to be submitted by July 31st. And I believe,
I thought it
Taylor-
said the workshop proposals for Friday, July 12th.
no, that's different than resolutions.
Okay, thank you.
And I believe
I
that
do
Taylor
have
had reached
ISBA,
out to
and they
ISBA.
are willing to come this summer, so maybe we can have them in our first July meeting. And if we want to do resolutions, we would have a few weeks to put some together.
Well, but that would be in a work session. though, right?
Yeah, but we would have to do a work session if we wanted to.
If you wanted to do a resolution, so the resolution is you pick a topic, a challenge, or something you want to advocate for.
Mhm.
And then, I believe they said they would come and help the board.
Nice.
They said that they would come make a presentation, all of that. So collectively, guys, is that something that we want to do? Do we want to just have the presentation first and then work on a resolution if that's what we should so decide? And we can decide that after the presentation? Or do we know we want to work on a resolution and we want to direct Clerk Lamont to start working on getting a work
Have we
session?
even discussed what
We haven't.
Nampa School District want? We've got too many changes right now to think about resolutions.
I understand. I'm a real big believer. If you want to say something, you should do something. And
These are changes statewide. I mean, these are resolutions for statewide.
correct. And there were some pain points that we had bumped into that I think it might be good just to say, hey, could we take a look at this at the state level? But again, I know our plates are
House Bill
full. That's why
521.
I just not
Do we
sure.
want to add it to the state of the schools and the board retreat? Not that you guys could complete it, but it could start drafting
can put
some and
it-
you could look at some.
Okay.
We
Does
can
that
put it
feel
there.
comfortable?
Does that feel comfortable?
Yeah.
And then after the ISBA comes, if there's a change of heart, then we would have time still to schedule a work session.
Perfect. Yeah,
Okay.
and it's not like something that,
Yes.
it's not like something that we absolutely have to do. I just know that
Understood.
yeah,
No,
so-
there was some things where I felt like we were really underrepresented when I went to the Day on the Hill, especially in some of the changes that we had made on the forefront. So I
Yeah.
get it. I do.
Okay.
Okay, anything else?
Yes, I did have a conversation with some parents who were concerned about the amount of food that their child was being served. Didn't feel like it was adequate. And I know this young lady, this little girl, and she is not, she's just high metabolism. So I think it's a conversation I want to have to make sure that we're providing, kids are not going hungry.
Are we limited, however, based on USDA recommendations and portion sizes and
So
other things?
put that to me really quick, guys, in a future board item. So do we want to do do we want to do an inquiry on food services as a board? Where are you wanting this as an agenda topic? Are you bringing it up as an area of concern and you'd like some more information?
I bring up an area of concern. So I'll touch base with Mr. Stoffer and then we'll
Okay,
summarize.
so then you guys chat, and then if you can put that in a way that we can put it on an agenda, will you guys get back to me so that we can get it on an agenda for you? Does that suffice you as well?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, all right. Anything else to be added to the agenda, guys?
No.
Do you mind if I start an email and Mr. Stoffer
Yeah.
with a couple other ideas that will align with that?
Sure.
Great,
Thank you.
thank you. Any other possible agenda items, guys?
Not yet, but give me a few minutes. I'll think.
I-
of one.
I am actually, if there is nothing else to be added, I am going to adjourn our meeting.
Okay, second.
Okay.